Chapter 2449. Call me Godfather. My realm essence, hold on a little longer. He roared in his heart. If he lost, everyone's hard work would be given to someone else. Therefore, he could not hand over the market. He glanced at Xian Yuan Guber, Gong Yangzheng, Tang Yue, and the others. He knew how much effort they had put in during this period of time. Lin Ling, on the other hand, had not done anything. He felt a little guilty. Boom. Unfortunately, guilt could not change the fact. Intense rumbling sounds continued to ring out, causing the dust on the street to rise into the air. The dust blocked Lin Ling's view. However, everyone was shaking their heads. They could already imagine that when the dust settled, what would appear would be a broken alchemy furnace and a regretful young man. Perhaps, the young man had made a mistake by challenging Lu Yanhong in the beginning. Lin Ling. Xian Yuan Guber's eyes were red. He was unwilling to accept this result. If Lin Ling had 3 chances and a good alchemy furnace, he would definitely not lose. This was not fair. All right, let's not waste everyone's time. The market is mine. Lord Xia laughed coldly. He stared at Xian Yuan Guber and the others lustfully. However, amidst the dust, Lin Ling's expression was still solemn. He was forcefully gathering all of his world essence to prevent the flames from extinguishing. As long as the flame was not extinguished, anything was possible. Idiot, why didn't you ask me for help? At this moment, a cold voice rang in his ears. I have to say that I admire your arrogance. This time, I will help you. The cold voice rang in Lin Ling's ears. Lin Ling could not help but smile. In the next moment, a huge amount of realm essence surged into Lin Ling's body. It was as if the wind had been strengthened by the fire. The flame that was about to be extinguished was once again ignited. As long as he persevered, anything was possible. The flame was not extinguished. The people outside the dust did not know what had happened. Lu Yanhong smiled and said, I told you that when I was playing with the barrier, you were still drinking milk. At this moment, her beautiful face was somewhat ferocious. However, no one thought that she was ferocious because she was the winner. That's not necessarily true. However, just as her voice sounded, a firm voice drifted over, causing the gazes of everyone on the street to flicker. Soon after, they discovered that a slender figure was walking out from the dense dust. It was Lin Ling. At this moment, he was holding the alchemy furnace with one hand while the other hand was behind his back. Crackle, crackle. Colorful flames were still burning around the pill furnace, and they were extremely vigorous. This scene, it was as if the flame god had descended. How is this possible? Lu Yanhong's eyes widened when she sensed Lin Ling's renewed vigor. She clearly sensed that Lin Ling's boundary essence was exhausted. But why did the current Lin Ling give her an extremely powerful feeling? It was as though his boundary essence was endless. This little guy is really unfathomable. Lord Eighth was disappointed at first, but at this moment, his eyes were full of vigor. Qi Yuhu, who was beside him, let out a sigh of relief. Previously, he was secretly sweating for Lin Ling. Bang! Almost at the same time, the alchemy furnace in Lin Ling's hand was smashed to the ground. His voice was like thunder, domineering like a wild knife. That terrifying aura made the people on the street swallow their saliva. All right, don't be mysterious. Did you successfully refine your pill? After Lu Yanhong recovered from her shock, she opened her palm and a colorful spirit cleansing pill floated in her palm. This pill is an Earthrank pill. No matter what waves you've caused, you've still lost. Her confident voice floated out of her mouth, causing the people around her to gradually come to their senses. Lin Ling was indeed miraculous, but so what if he succeeded? Could he compare to Lu Yanhong? Seeing Lu Yanhong's confident look, Lin Ling smiled. I'm sorry, but my luck seems to be pretty good. After saying that, he stretched out his hand and slammed the alchemy furnace on the ground. Boom! The alchemy furnace broke under the pressure, and there was a short period of silence. But in the next moment, the sky was filled with rolling winds and clouds. A divine light descended from the sky, as if summoned by a god. A pill rose from the ground, blooming with endless light. Divine light protection. Countless people raised their heads, their eyes wide open. Divine light protection was a unique symbol of awakening a divine body. Could it be that Lin Ling had refined a heaven-rank spirit cleansing pill? A spirit cleansing pill that awakens a divine body? Lord Eighth, who had been sitting, couldn't help but stand up and stare at the sky in horror. Not only can a heaven-rank spirit cleansing pill increase one's cultivation by 1 realm, It can also allow a cultivator's talent to reach the level of awakening a divine body. Ancestor Long Granny was indeed an orange-robed boundary master. At this moment, she was muttering to herself. However, this voice was like thunder, directly smashing into everyone's hearts. If a piece of trash swallowed this pill, he would become a genius of the 3 great academies in the next moment. This was a true divine pill. Plop! Lu Yanhong looked up at the pill floating in the sky and was so frightened that she sat down on the ground. Heaven rank, heaven rank. If she remembered correctly, there was only one person in the entire Resplendent Academy who could successfully refine it. Moreover, this was something recorded in history. The most recent person who had successfully refined it was a world boundary master from the Great Azure Divine Dynasty. He had also refined it once, and at that time, it had also alarmed the entire Great Azure Divine Dynasty. However, the latter was a famous boundary master for 10,000 years. And now, the one who had successfully refined it was only a nameless young man. You've lost. Go and call him Godfather. While she was surprised, a calm voice floated out from Lin Ling's mouth at the same time. Yeah, we won. After that voice, Xian Yuan Guber and Tang Yue hugged each other, incomparably excited. Haha, as expected of the Lord. Falling flowers, flowing water, Gong Yangjiang, and the others also hugged each other, and even their eyes were a little moist. They had put in a lot of effort into the market, and today, a powerful senior had wanted to snatch it away, but their shopkeeper had bravely stepped out and defeated those people's evil intentions. This guy is really restless. I was worried about him for nothing. In the distance, Chiyuhu revealed a gratified smile, as if he was looking at a junior with a doting gaze. All right, let him take the marshal's seal. I won't object. Beside him, Lord Eighth smiled meaningfully, and his words made Chiyuhu feel proud. The Martial God Battalion had a successor. At least, this lord had agreed. The entire street was looking at Lin Ling, and the sounds of discussion rose and fell one after another. Those cultivators clearly valued Lin Ling's God-cleansing pill more, and directly abandoned Lu Yanhong's pill. There were even people who directly reprimanded Lu Yanhong in order to curry favor with Lin Ling. You've lost. Accept your loss. The person who spoke was clearly not weak, so he wasn't afraid of the latter. Most importantly, although he didn't need Lin Ling's God-cleansing pill, his junior did. Moreover, Lin Ling had successfully refined it with a broken pill furnace and a single chance. What if he had better resources than Lu Yanhong? Aye. Chapter 2450. Coward. Unfortunately, the world of martial arts was cruel. The winner was king, and the loser was a bandit. If Lin Ling had lost, he would have been consigned to eternal damnation, and no one would have sympathized with him. But now that Lu Yanhong had lost, no one would sympathize with her. After all, not everyone was lustful. Not to mention, Lu Yanhong was such a filthy woman that most martial artists disdained her. One was an earth-tier pill with its light soaring into the sky. The other was a heaven-tier divine pill with its divine light protecting its body. The difference between the two was clear at a glance. Moreover, divine pills were very powerful. For example, if a heaven-tier divine pill was placed in Lin Ling's world, it could cause the entire world to collapse with its divine light protecting its body. Master Xia still did not seem to believe the truth. However, how could he lose face like this? He wanted to renege on his debt, but unfortunately, a dignified voice sounded in his ears. It was Eighth Jew. Xia Ren, you seem to have lost. Master Xia's body trembled, and his old face was filled with anger. He hated Lin Ling to death, so he could only walk towards Lu Yanhong. Lu Yanhong's heart was like dead ashes. She knew that not only Eighth Jew, but the people around her were also on Lin Ling's side. Therefore, she knelt down and kowtowed. After standing up, she hesitated for a long time and stared at Master Xia. Finally, she took a step forward, hugged Master Xia, and kissed him on his wrinkled face. Godfather. Everyone heard those sweet words. Haha, Godfather, that's so mushy. I have goosebumps. I want to be a godfather too. Master Xia is old, but his heart is not. After a short silence, the street burst into laughter. The sound made Lu Yanhong want to dig a hole and hide in it. Of course, Master Xia was the same. He could imagine what kind of ridicule he would receive when he returned to the Resplendent Academy. Then Master Xia looked at Lin Ling and said with a smile, Your name is Lin Ling, right? Not bad at all. In time, you'll become a dragon. As soon as he finished speaking, he recognized the jade bottle in his hand. He was willing to accept his loss. Of course, although his words sounded like praise, they were actually filled with killing intent. "Thank you for your kind words, Master Xia." Lin Ling didn't seem to notice the killing intent. He smiled faintly and took the drifting spirit fox flame. Although this flame hadn't reached the level of awakening a godly body, it was enough for his flames of time and space to level up again. "Thank you," Lin Ling mumbled to himself. The person he was thanking was Queen Qianji. If she hadn't helped Lin Ling with her boundary essence, Lin Ling might not have succeeded. Tsk, Lin Ling, well done." At this moment, Ancestor Dragon Granny looked at Lin Ling and could not help but laugh. Xia Ren had obviously come prepared. Originally, he wanted to seize Lin Ling's market, but in the end, Lin Ling turned the tide and turned defeat into victory. Not only did he defeat Xia Ren's scheme, but he also helped advertise for the market. Right now, no one doubted the Yulin market anymore, and their business would be even better in the future. "We've won." Xian Yuan Good and the others smiled as they walked towards Lin Ling. They had finally passed through this great calamity. Although they knew that Lin Ling's growth was very fast, the ones who came today were the former first-generation Master Xia and Senior Zhang Wen. These powerhouses were not people that Lin Ling could deal with at present. Therefore, it was obviously not easy for him to pass through this calamity safely. "It's not over yet." Lin Ling smiled as he looked at them. However, he quickly said something that stunned Xian Yuan Gub and the others. Then they all reacted. Sure enough, the 36 World Kings smiled and said, "Lin Ling, you and I have agreed to fight. Today you won't run away, right?" "Agreed to fight?" Xian Yuan Gub and the others' eyes narrowed. Last time, the 36 World Kings did not ask for any reason and suppressed Lin Ling. Now they had agreed to fight with Lin Ling? This was too overbearing. 36 World Kings, last time you came looking for trouble. It's obvious to all. Do you have the nerve to say that this isn't agreed to fight? Tang Yue immediately said. "Tang Yue, it's none of your business." The 36 World Kings coldly shouted. He stared at Lin Ling and said, "Do you only know how to hide behind a woman? Coward." His last words were a roar that spread throughout the entire street. He called Lin Ling a coward. He wanted to see if Lin Ling had the face to bear this infamy. How arrogant. There are so many powerhouses here, and he dares to curse Lin Ling. The expressions of the surrounding people changed. The rogue cultivators who were on Lin Ling's side also frowned. This was an agreed to fight. Although they wanted to help Lin Ling, it was obviously impossible. He's a coward. In my opinion, he should have handed over the spirit-drifting fox flame. Cowards can't obtain treasures. As a man, he only knows how to hide behind a woman. Why should such a man learn martial arts? Trash! At this moment, Luo Le and the others also laughed coldly. They were gloating and adding insult to injury. Of course, when they were mocking, they also quietly glanced at Lord Eighth in the distance. When they saw him smiling without saying a word, they were even more certain that Lord Eighth would not appear. As for Ancestor Dragon Granny, with Master Xia around, there was no need to fear her. As a disciple of the Resplendent Academy and a martial god genius of the Myriad Realms, you should set an example. Since you agreed to fight, you shouldn't refuse. Lin Ling, I'm very disappointed in you. Senior Zhang Wen said righteously. He was also looking for an opportunity to step on Lin Ling. In the past, when he presided over the talent assessment, Lin Ling had made him lose a large number of divine crystals. Therefore, he hated Lin Ling to the bone. Trash, coward, say something. Yuan Ian also spoke. He had finally found an opportunity to step on Lin Ling. As for White Bird, the Moonlight Swordsman, and the others, they sneered. They couldn't compare to Lin Ling, but they also wanted to see Lin Ling lose face. Senior Zhang Wen, you should stop talking nonsense. Lin Ling is the last generation, and the 36 Realm Kings are the third generation. Do you think the battle between the two of them is fair? Why don't you let Lin Ling become the third generation before the agreed battle? Hearing those mocking words, the Shen Yuan Gub felt very uncomfortable. It was even more uncomfortable than being scolded. She immediately retorted. When these words came out, the street also became silent. Indeed, was the battle between the last generation and the third generation fair? Coward, do you dare or not? The 36 Realm King naturally didn't want to be entangled in this topic. He took a step forward and a powerful aura erupted, suppressing Lin Ling. Last time, Lin Ling wasn't his opponent. Just this alone was enough for him to be proud in front of Lin Ling. Now, Lin Ling could either leave with the name of a coward or fight. It was hard to choose. There weren't many paths left for Lin Ling. Lin Ling, ignore them. Let's go back. Ancestor Long Granny hurriedly stood in front of Lin Ling and coldly stared at those people. The other party had Xia Ren, so she couldn't reprimand the 36 realm kings as a senior. Haha, coward, get lost. Seeing this, Yuan Eden laughed the loudest, as if he was elated. You don't dare to fight? Fine, from now on, you have to take a detour when you see me. Now get lost. The 36 realm king's long hair fluttered as he spoke indifferently. He glanced at Lu Yanhong as if to tell her that he had already regained face for her. Moreover, this wasn't the last time. In the future, every time he saw Lin Ling, he would bully him. Get lost. Chapter 2451. Joining forces to suppress Lin Ling. How disgraceful. The surrounding martial artists shook their heads. Lin Ling's world enchantments were very good, but unfortunately, world enchantments didn't represent one's strength. Now they could only watch as Lin Ling rolled away. However, everyone thought that Lin Ling would roll away, but Lin Ling still didn't move. This caused the 36 World King to frown. This Lin Ling wasn't listening to him? He immediately wanted to reprimand Lin Ming. Did I agree not to fight? However, before he could finish his sentence, Lin Ling's indifferent voice drifted out. He agreed. The surrounding martial artists couldn't believe their ears. They had clearly seen Lin Ling's strength when he was refining the divine pill. He was at the 4th level of the World King realm. As for the 36 World Kings, they were at the 7th level of the World King realm. The two of them weren't even on the same level. Even the 36 World King was incomparably shocked. Although Lin Ling's boundary had risen, he still didn't place him in his eyes. This was because last time, Lin Ling had been inferior to him. Good. A martial god genius of Resplendent Academy should be like this. Grandmaster Xia pondered for a moment and then immediately spoke out, blocking off Lin Ling's path of retreat. He couldn't wait for Lin Ling to agree. A battle between martial god geniuses. If you want to fight, then let's have a life or death battle. Then Grandmaster Xia made the final decision. It was clear that he wished that Lin Ling would die in this battle. A life or death battle, this is too ruthless. A massive uproar immediately spread through the streets. Ancestor Dragon Granny and Xian Yuan Gub's pupils shrank. They quickly looked towards Lin Ling, not understanding why Lin Ling would agree to this battle. The road of martial arts is to bravely move forward, constantly eliminating opponents. If I refuse this battle, then it will be detrimental to my road of martial arts. Lin Ling looked at them and shook his head. Ancestor Dragon Granny and the others smiled bitterly. If that was the case, they would not be able to stop it. In the distance, Lord Eighth nodded slightly. This Lin Ling has the valiant heart of a warrior. Can he win this battle? This question was obviously directed at Chi Yuhu. However, Chi Yuhu shook his head. He didn't have much confidence in himself, but since things had come to this, he could only wait and see. And on the entire street, countless people were looking at the 36 World Kings and Lin Ling. For a time, they began to seethe with excitement. I wonder how this battle between the last generation and the third generation will end. At this moment, Lin Ling didn't pay attention to the voices around him. Instead, he said, "Of course, before we fight, I also want to challenge a few people. Yuani and Luo Le God Qian, how about a fight?" The 36 World Kings were still mocking Lin Ling for overestimating himself. But as soon as they heard Lin Ling's voice, their pupils shrank. They immediately quieted down. Lin Ling was the previous champion of the assessment. His strength was terrifying. How could they be his match? I refuse. Soon, Yuan Ian coldly said, "You are the champion of the assessment, and we are all inferior to you. This battle is fair, so there is no point in fighting. Then, when I fight the 36 World Kings, he is the third generation and I am the last generation. Is this a fair battle?" Lin Ling opposed him with equal harshness. Hearing this, Yuan Eben felt as if he had been ruthlessly slapped in the face. He couldn't refute. We are both martial god geniuses of the Resplendent Academy. If we don't even dare to fight, then how can we talk about martial arts? However, Lin Ling's aura was like an unsheathed sword, tightly pressing against him. What an arrogant youth. The surrounding people secretly nodded. When Lin Ling was silent, they thought that Lin Ling was enduring humiliation. But, They didn't expect that Lin Ling wasn't enduring humiliation. Instead, he was accumulating strength to launch a fatal counterattack. Luo Le God Qian, weren't you very talkative before? Now let's fight. Lin Ling's expression was cold as he spoke again. Pa! Luo Le and the others also took a step back. Many people shook their heads in disdain. These people were really spineless. White Bird, Moonlight Swordsman, I know that you are also unhappy with me. Then I will also give you a chance to fight. Come. Lin Ling looked at White Bird and the others. Unfortunately, they gritted their teeth and lowered their heads. Cowards. Lin Ling returned what they had said to him with interest. Cowards. The entire street was filled with Lin Ling's domineering voice, causing countless echoes. Seeing this, Ancestor Dragon and the others laughed. Although Lin Ling wasn't as good as the third generation, in the last generation, who else could be better than him? Seeing Lin Ling rise again and suppress the people on his side, the 36 Realm King's eyes were cold. He wanted to reprimand Lin Ling, but at this time, Lin Ling's voice floated out. 36 Realm King, I know that you want to kill me, but you don't have to rush. Before that, let me fight these people. Moreover, they can join forces. His meaning was clear. If you want me to fight, fine, but Lin Ling wants to fight Luo Le and the others first. Most importantly, Luo Le and the others could join forces. Join forces? I don't care. When Luo Le and the others heard this, it was as if they had been humiliated. They raised their heads and shouted angrily. They were from the same batch of martial god geniuses, but if they had to join forces to fight Lin Ling, then even if they won, others would laugh at them. Fight! However, the 36 Realm King forced them to fight. He said indifferently, don't worry, with me here, he can't touch you. Moreover, he can't win against you. At this critical moment, Senior Brother 36 Realm King must protect us. Yuan Eden was still worried, but as he saw the 36 Realm King nod his head, he finally relaxed. Good, I will fight. Lin Ling, I originally disdained joining forces with you, but I can't stand your arrogance. Luo Lu, Great Divinity Qian, and the others also nodded. In truth, they were all at the 5th level of the World King realm. If they joined forces, they should be able to kill Lin Ling. Unfortunately, Lin Ling didn't care about their confidence at all. He looked at White Bird and said, White Bird, what about you? If you don't dare, then call yourselves cowards and I will spare your lives. Of course, from now on, if you see me, make a detour. Lin Ling, don't go too far. I will accompany you. White Bird was a genius of the Heavenly Court. How could he suffer such humiliation? Thus, he also participated in this battle. As for the Moonlight Swordsman, he was constantly hesitating. In truth, if it weren't for his master reminding him not to provoke Lin Ling, he really would have fought. But he had to listen to his master's words. And his master was one of the 10 great sword immortals of the Azure province. He had heard the suggestion of another sword immortal, so he had told him not to provoke Lin Ling. As for the other sword immortal, he was the master of the Falling Flower Flowing Water Sword. I am a coward. The Moonlight Swordsman lowered his head. Although he had to follow his master's instructions, the Moonlight Swordsman still felt that he had lost all face by calling himself a coward. He couldn't raise his head anymore. You really are a coward. If you had fought, then there would have been no first place in our batch of martial god geniuses. Unfortunately, you are afraid. White Bird disdainfully said, and then flew into the sky. The Moonlight Swordsman tightly gripped his sword, as if he had suffered a great humiliation. If he had fought, then perhaps this would have been his most dazzling moment. Unfortunately, he didn't fight. Then, as he watched Luo Lu and the others fly into the sky, he felt regret in his heart. He shouldn't have listened to his master's words. Lin Ling, get up here. Let us see how strong you are as first place. Chapter 2452. Catch them all in one fell swoop. These 4 people were Luo Lu, God Qian, White Bird, and Yuan Eden. On the ground, everyone raised their heads with a solemn expression. Although Lin Ling was first in the assessment, he had to fight 4 people at once, and none of them were easy to deal with. It would be difficult for Lin Ling to win. This arrogant guy, I don't know why he made such a decision. In the crowd, Blue Enchantress, Yu Linglong, and the other martial god geniuses who took the assessment together frowned. Because they knew that during this period of time, White Bird and the rest's strength had greatly increased. Then they looked at Lin Ling, only to find that Lin Ling's expression was very calm. Under the worries of Xian Yuan Gub and the rest, He walked towards the sky step by step. The entire process was as calm as an ancient well, as unmoving as a mountain. They had no choice but to be convinced by such courage. But this is a battle of life and death. Then Lin Ling's voice drifted out. Nonsense. Do you think we're free? Luo Le and the rest immediately shouted in anger. They were high and mighty, like gods descending to the mortal world. At this moment, they were whispering, discussing how to kill Lin Ling. This caused their confidence to grow stronger and stronger. Lin Ling smiled and continued to walk forward. In fact, he had long wanted to catch them all in one fell swoop, cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots. Therefore, he had invited these people to fight and pretended to be weak in order to make them fall into a trap. Lin Ling, the former first in 2 assessments, powerful, very powerful. Unfortunately, you're going to die here today. When Lin Ling appeared in the sky, Luo Lu immediately clapped his hands as if he was praising Lin Ling. However, before he could finish speaking, White Bird had already attacked. They had obviously discussed a plan to kill Lin Ling with the momentum of a storm. White Bird whirled. There was a deafening sound of birds chirping, and the white birds turned into humans. Countless white birds flew in the sky, extremely beautiful, but it caused many people's expressions to change drastically. Because those white birds were suppressing the terrifying power of the world's essence, and upon contact, they would explode. These white birds could even easily destroy a world. How despicable! Many people immediately cursed. It was one thing to join forces, but to launch a sneak attack? The title of martial god genius had been completely lost by them. The winner dies, and the loser is a bandit. What sneak attack is this? In the sky, Yuan ate and seemed to have heard someone's dissatisfaction. He smiled faintly and attacked as well. However, great god Qian was even faster than him. The majestic flames transformed into an arrow and shot out with devastating force. 50% of his world essence erupted. Furthermore, this was no longer the power of an entire world. Instead, it was the power born from his Dantian's world spirit. It was extremely powerful. This sword strike could obliterate any 5th stage world king. It was because he condensed all of his realm essence, going all out. Sha Ju. Boom. Boom. Luo Lu took advantage of his victory to pursue and attack. He unleashed his ultimate skill, which was an advanced 2nd-grade martial art. Dark clouds covered the sky as a terrifying sandstorm arrived, engulfing everything. The warriors on the ground exclaimed in surprise. He was indeed worthy of being the strongest genius in the assessment. His strength was terrifying. Haha, Lin Ling, die. As Yuan Eden attacked, he let out a ferocious roar. Lin Ling shouldn't have thought that they would suddenly attack. The current Lin Ling wouldn't be able to react in time. Not bad, not bad. On the ground, Grandmaster Xia, Lu Yanhong, and even the 36 world kings sneered. Lin Ling, how arrogant. Let's see how arrogant you can be. Now you should be regretting it. They could already imagine how Lin Ling would be torn to shreds. But would the result be like this? The answer was obviously no. Boom. Boom. Turbulent power erupted, causing the sky to explode. It was as if the world was collapsing. But at this time, a mysterious aura also filled the air. It was like a god, like a demon. Among the countless white birds, a figure fearlessly rushed forward. He was constantly pushed back by the countless white birds, but that figure still bravely rushed forward. It was Lin Ling. His speed was very fast. Even if he was injured, he still wanted to rush forward. He was getting closer and closer to the white bird. The most terrifying thing was that Lin Ling actually found the true body of the white bird among the tens of thousands of white birds. With a single punch, he punched out with devastating force. What? The white bird's eyes widened. Lin Ling was actually risking his life. Boom. The punch hit the gorgeous white bird flying in the sky, causing countless people to gulp. They didn't know what had happened. There's no power of realm essence. That punch shouldn't have much lethality. Someone muttered, "Ka-ka-ka." But at this time, the sound of bones breaking could be heard. The flying white bird's bones were broken inch by inch, and it turned back into the white bird's original appearance. The crowd on the street exploded. That punch was actually so powerful? The white bird also didn't expect Lin Ling's punch to be so terrifying. But he had already lost the power to fight. The strongest genius in the past assessment seemed to be unable to withstand a single blow. Lin Ling appeared in front of him and said softly. Then he punched out again. It was as if his punch could break through 10,000 worlds. What? You? Everyone heard the white bird's panicked voice. It was extremely panicked. Many people even wanted to know why the white bird was panicking. What exactly was he trying to say? But it was all too late. Lin Ling killed the white bird with a single punch. How terrifying was his current godly devil body? It had already reached the mystic body level. He probably didn't even need to use 30% of his strength to kill the white bird. The terrifying fist was like the fist of a godly devil. It had already appeared in front of the white bird's eyes. At this moment, he was extremely regretful. Because what Lin Ling said to him before was very simple. The Demon Guardian Master was killed by me. The Demon Guardian Master was the third generation of the Resplendent Academy. His strength was comparable to the 36 world kings. But now he was killed by Lin Ling. This meant that Lin Ling's strength was stronger than the 36 world kings. Therefore, he knew that he had been tricked. He didn't expect Lin Ling to surpass him so much in such a short period of time. Moreover, everyone had been tricked. Lin Ling wanted to kill them all in one fell swoop. He had wanted to say this before, but unfortunately he didn't say it in the end. Boom. That punch directly exploded him. Countless feathers fell from the sky, causing the faces of the people on the street to turn solemn. The strongest genius in the previous assessment had died in front of their eyes. The white bird is dead. Yuan Yiban's face was filled with fear. Killing the white bird with a single punch was clearly beyond his imagination. Why are you afraid of him? He's risking his life. However, Great God Qian's voice soon drifted out, causing Yuan Yiban to be shocked. This was because he also saw that Lin Ling was riddled with wounds. Indeed, Lin Ling was risking his life. Therefore, they still had a chance. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but become excited. Sacrificing the white bird to kill Lin Ling was not bad at all. As for Great God Qian and Luo Lu, it was the same. Lin Ling was a great enemy of their commandery. It was very suitable for them to kill Lin Ling. Moreover, after returning to their commandery, they would become heroes of their commandery. After all, many of the geniuses of the two commanderies had died in the hands of Lin Ling. They had ended the legend of Lin Ling. Chapter 2453. It would be better to die than admit defeat. Great God Qian. Facing Great God Qian, who he was not familiar with, Lin Ling's anger erupted like a volcano. It was because of Great God Qian and Luo Li's arrest warrant that Sun Yener had died in the Rising Sun boundary. Hence, he wanted to kill these two people the most. Hence, he had set a trap for these two people to jump into. He would not let them live past today. Rumble. The raging flames turned into an arrow and shot towards Lin Ling. It was Great God Qian's fatal attack. Lin Ling, Xianyuan Guber and the rest were secretly worried for Lin Ling. Lin Ling had suffered from White Bird's fatal attack, and now he had to face the flame arrow. It would be difficult for Lin Ling to face it. That is Tating Prefecture's Sun Arrow. Although Great God Qian did not use the essence of it, it should not be underestimated. In the crowd, some ancient martial art practitioners mumbled. Boom. That arrow was indeed terrifying as it pierced through Lin Ling's body. The street instantly fell silent. As for Great God Qian and the other two people in the sky, they were stunned. Then, they laughed maniacally because Lin Ling was dead. You are too inexperienced to play with fire. Have you forgotten that I have an awakened divine body? However, in the next moment, a figure was reborn from the flames. Although he still looked injured, his aura was still majestic. If it was not Lin Ling, who else could it be? He shot towards Great God Qian like a shooting star, causing the smile on Great God Qian's face to freeze as his eyes widened. That's right. He had forgotten that Lin Ling had an awakened divine body. Moreover, it was a flame that was stronger than his fire talent. He had used fire to attack Lin Ling, but what was the effect? It could not even compare to White Bird's attack. Sun Yener died because of you. Even if you turn into ashes, I will not let you off. Lin Ling's voice was filled with boundless anger. It turned into a terrifying punch and landed in front of Great God Qian. Lin Ling, wait. Great God Qian's face was pale. Just like White Bird, he was filled with endless regret. Boom. Regret couldn't change anything. They thought that they could kill Lin Ling together, but they didn't know that if Lin Ling wanted to kill them, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. Boom. Boom. Just as Great God Qian died, a sandstorm surged from the sky. It was as if it came from the chaos of the universe, enveloping Lin Ling from every angle. As for Lin Ling, he was instantly enveloped. There was no way to block it, no way to defend against it. This time, he should be dead. Yuan Eden knew that the sandstorm was Luo Li's attack. It should be able to kill Lin Ling. Lin Ling could block the attack of one genius, but what about 2 or 3? He turned his head to look and immediately discovered that Luo Li's face was extremely pale. He was actually flying off into the distance. He was running away. Luo Li didn't seem to be very confident in himself. Boom. As expected, the sandstorm immediately exploded. A figure shot towards Luo Li like a killing god. It was Lin Ling. Run. Run to the ends of the earth. You will die. Lin Ling's cold voice rang in Luo Li's ears, causing his body to tremble violently. In fact, he had run away previously because he suddenly remembered that Lin Ling had an awakened divine body. He could protect himself with divine light, and his defense was extremely terrifying. Therefore, he didn't think that he could kill Lin Ling. Let's sit down and talk. I admit that I was wrong. I hope that you will give me a chance. Luo Li said in a panic as he flew. You don't have any chance. Sun Yener is dead. Even if the Lord of the Commandery comes, he won't be able to protect you. No one in this world can protect you. Unfortunately, Lin Ling was overflowing with killing intent. He was domineering. For Sun Yener, who had called him master. Therefore, Lin Ling would eliminate whoever came to save Luo Li. If the Commandery dared to come, he would eliminate the Commandery. When Luo Li heard Lin Ling's ruthless words, his face turned even paler. At this moment, his heart was dead. What an arrogant young man. On the street, many people cried out in surprise. Lin Ling was determined to kill. If God blocked him, he would kill God. If Buddha blocked him, he would kill Buddha. Boom. And that was indeed the case. Luo Li was killed by Lin Ling. Among the 4 strongest geniuses, only the weakest, Yuan Eden, was left. This man from the De Yuan mansion was dumbfounded. He stood motionless in the sky. He recalled his previous encounter with Lin Ling at the inn. At that time, Lin Ling had humiliated him. During the assessment, Lin Ling had defeated him again. He was not reconciled. He wanted to trample on Lin Ling. Unfortunately, he now knew that he could not afford to offend Lin Ling. At the same time, Lin Ling appeared in front of Yuan Eden. He looked at Yuan Eden like a god of death. Yuan Eden quickly looked down at the ground. His eyes fell on the 36 world kings because the latter had promised to protect him. However, the 36 world kings did not move. They stood on the ground like heroes of a generation. Their indifferent eyes were like water in an ancient well. This made Yuan Eden feel as if his heart had been struck by lightning. There is no need to look. You are only here to test my strength. To put it bluntly, you are men of sacrifice. Lin Ling directly said the truth. The 4 of them were indeed men of sacrifice. They were here to test Lin Ling's strength. Lin Ling, I admit defeat. Yuan Eden realized this and immediately felt very sad. What was ridiculous was that he had spoken up for the 36 world kings and called Lin Ling a coward. He had obviously helped the wrong person. I admit defeat. Everyone has heard it. Yuan Eden anxiously shouted at the ground. Then he flew towards the ground. Admit defeat? Is there anyone who admits defeat in this battle? Worthy of being called a coward. However, the martial artists on the ground sneered again and again. This made Yuan Eden's expression extremely awkward. However, the ground was getting closer and closer to his eyes. He seemed to be able to survive. Unfortunately, this was just wishful thinking. The 4 of them had joined forces to kill Lin Ling. They had even launched a sneak attack. Now that they were about to fail, did they really think that they could get away with it just because they admitted defeat? Lin Ling was not that stupid. Just as Yuan Eden's foot was about to touch the ground, a palm seemed to come from the void and suddenly grasped his neck. Yuan Eden was only 1 step away from the ground. Unfortunately, this short step was very far away. Moreover, the door to life had already closed, leaving him with the door to hell. Admit defeat? Better die. He heard the last words of his life. The next moment, his head exploded. Admit defeat? Better die. That sentence was also on the ground. It floated out majestically, causing all the nearby streets to be silent. The 4 of them joined forces to fight Lin Ling. However, in less than half an hour, they were all wiped out. Lin Ling's methods could be said to be the momentum of a storm. From this point of view, it could also be said that among the martial gods in this world, Lin Ling was invincible. Far away on the street, the moonlight swordsman sat on the ground with a plop. His face was very pale. It was the kind of paleness that came from surviving a disaster. Previously, he regretted not joining the battle. Now he was glad that he did not join the battle. Because if he had joined the battle, he, the Moonlight Swordsman, would have been among the dead. Master, you're right, the Moonlight Swordsman muttered to himself. Then he looked at Falling Flowers' flowing water sword. At this moment, he kowtowed to the ladder a few times. Because the person who had warned his master was Falling Flowers' flowing water sword's master. Chapter 2454. 30 years in the East, 30 years in the West. Up until now, his master and Falling Flower Flowing Sword's master had been Qing Province's 10 great sword immortals. Thus, he had constantly bullied Falling Flower Flowing Sword. But at this moment, he suddenly felt admiration for the latter. And that gaze was naturally noticed by Falling Flower Flowing Sword. He faintly smiled and suddenly felt a sense of pride in his heart. This was because all of this was brought about by Lord Lin Ling. His gaze was filled with worship as he stared at Lin Ling. In fact, the entire street was staring at Lin Ling. Even Blue Enchantress's eyes were filled with worship. Pa pa pa. But at this time, the crisp sound of a slap suddenly rang out. Not bad at all. No wonder you're so much more powerful than them. Now, it's our turn to fight. 36 World King walked out, his face full of smiles and confidence. Come up. Lin Ling also smiled and stepped into the sky. At this moment, his blue robe was as mysterious as the clouds in the sky. 36 World King's eyes immediately flashed. Lin Ling had fought before, yet he was still so confident? He simply didn't know that death was at hand. He sneered and said, "Who told you to be faster than me?" The earth suddenly shook. Vines rushed into the sky as if they were carrying a king. They carried 36 World King towards the sky and arrived a step faster than Lin Ling. He clearly didn't want to be weaker than Lin Ling in terms of momentum. Most importantly, he believed that Lin Ling was already a dead man. You fought to the death before and were riddled with scars. I don't know where you get the confidence to fight again. 36 World King indifferently said as he stood on the vines. He could also see that Lin Ling's strength had increased a lot. That was why he was able to kill those 4. Using other people's lives to test me. You are very hypocritical. Lin Ling also appeared in the sky at this moment and slowly drew his sword. The winner dies and the loser is a bandit. This principle applies everywhere. Therefore, not only did I use them to test you, I also used them to exhaust you. Now that you are seriously injured, I don't know how you can win. 36 Realm King extended his left hand and made an inviting gesture. Of course, even if you were at your peak, you still wouldn't be able to defeat me. Green Summer Devil Thunder. Rumble. Following his voice, countless vines rose from the ground and swayed upwards. Green lightning twined around the sky, terrifying to the extreme. On the ground below, the expressions of everyone changed drastically. 36 World Kings were the world lords that controlled 36 great worlds. They were young, but their strength had reached an unfathomable level. As for Lin Ming, his strength was at the 7th stage of the World King realm. Although his talent was inferior to Lin Ling's, his boundary made up for the disparity in talent. Moreover, Lin Ling seemed to be seriously injured. It was even harder for him to win. Perhaps the 36 Realm Kings were afraid of Lin Ling's divine light protecting his body, so they sent White Bird and the others to exhaust Lin Ling. It had to be said that the 36 Realm Kings were truly despicable. Unfortunately, at this time, no matter how despicable they were, who could stop them? On the ground, Grandmaster Xia and Lu Yanhong's eyes flashed with a cold light. When Lin Ling had killed 4 people, they hadn't cared at all. This was because they knew that this was the most critical battle. Lin Ling was absolutely not a match for the 36 Realm Kings. Even 8th Baron, Ancestor Dragon Granny, and the others believed this. Their eyes were filled with worry, helplessness, and disappointment. Of course, if they knew what Lin Ling was doing at Rising Sun World, they wouldn't think this way. Lin Ling, in truth, how many of my moves do you think you can block? In this moment of absolute silence, the 36 Realm Kings laughed out loud. This was an insolent laughter. One sword. His long hair danced in the wind. Lin Ling lightly spat out these words, causing everyone's pupils to tremble. One sword. Lin Ling was still as confident as before. Haha, with just you. The 36 Realm Kings laughed even louder. At the same time, the vines beneath his feet shot towards Lin Ling like countless tentacles, a massive amount of monster thunder wreaking havoc within. I know that you have a divine light protecting your body, but this sort of advantage only applies to martial artists at the same boundary who are weaker than you. Against me, it's useless. I want to see just how many of my moves your divine light can block. Pop, pop, pop. With this sound, countless vines pierced through the skies like lightning, their momentum terrifying. Lin Ling. My lord. On the ground below, Xian Yuan Gub and the others couldn't hold back any longer. They loudly shouted out. In fact, falling flowers, flowing water soared, and the others wished they could rush into the skies and help Lin Ling. With 8th Baron here, I want to see just who dares to stop this battle. But just as they were about to move, Grandmaster Xia angrily shouted out. He actually brought out 8th Baron. Like this, Ancestor Dragon Granny and the others couldn't do anything. Lin Ling is only at the 4th level of the World King realm. He won't be able to block this. The people on the streets secretly sighed. They could already see Lin Ling being torn to shreds. Even the red jade tiger's eyes flashed. He almost couldn't help but rush into the skies. But at this time, 8th Baron's eyes brightened. He stopped him and solemnly said, "Wait a moment." Things seemed to have changed. At this time, the skies seemed to turn into a world of monster thunder. Vines crisscrossed the skies, blocking out the world. But soon, a sword appeared in a dazzling light. It was like a sword god had descended, cutting down all. Before, Lin Ling had only used his divinity and demon body. But now he had finally used his sword. Moreover, he erupted with 80% of his strength. Shwa! The sword shot out like water, dazzling and dazzling. The thunder was cut apart, the vines were cut apart, causing the streets to fall into a deathly silence. Many people even saw that blue-robed youth seemed to be dancing in the skies. That ancient sword could be said to be vast and mighty, filled with the might of a tiger. How is this possible? Grandmaster Xia was shocked, his heart pounding. This was too strange. Lin Ling was only at the 4th stage of the World King realm. It was impossible for him to block the attack of a 7th stage World King. Even the 36 World King's eyes widened. He shook his head, as if he had seen the most terrifying thing in his life. This was because if he didn't remember wrong, Lin Ling hadn't been so calm when facing this attack last time. Unfortunately, even if he shook his head, he still couldn't change reality. 36 World King, are you surprised? Last time, you were so overbearing and magnificent, fighting me to a standstill. But now, have you not discovered that your attacks have become much weaker? On the other side, Lin Ling slowly walked forwards. His sword was extremely sharp, constantly cutting apart the vines. And at this time, the power of world essence gushed out from his 2 dantians, sweeping away everything in its path. This was because this power of world essence had already reached the strength of the 7th stage of the World King realm. Moreover, the Tyrant Song sword had reached the 9th grade, increasing his world essence by 90%. This meant that Lin Ling's world essence strength had nearly reached the 8th stage of the World King realm. In addition to the divine light protecting his body. To put it bluntly, to him, the 36 World Kings were nothing more than ants. He could step on them however he wanted to. The river flows east for 30 years, and then west for 30 years. Have you ever thought that you would have such a day? The entire sky was filled with Lin Ling's indifferent voice. It was like thunder, crashing into everyone's hearts. Xian Yuan Gub and the others all gripped their fists in excitement. Chapter 2455. A sword breaks thunder. In the past, Lin Ling had been bitterly battling the 36 World Kings. But today, it seemed as if the Lin Ling was already suppressing them. Time changed everything, especially for monstrous geniuses. Wherever they fell, they would stand up from there. In particular, Lin Ling, who had been hunted down by assassins at Rising Sun World, had undergone a metamorphosis. This moment belonged to him. Bang! All of the vines and thunder in the sky were chopped to pieces by the sword, as weak as tofu. As for the 36 World King, his complexion was extremely pale. The changes in this battle had far surpassed his imagination. He simply couldn't understand how Lin Ling, who had been weak a moment ago, had become so powerful now. How did his defeated opponent in the past become so mysterious today? Thunder-drawing art, he roared, causing winds and clouds to gather in the skies. Dark clouds gathered and millions of demonic thunders condensed. The last time Lin Ling faced this move, he wouldn't have been able to win unless he erupted with the space-time divine steel. Would it be the same this time? Lin Ling, don't point fingers at me. Die for me. The 36 World King angrily roared towards the heavens. He was like the finger of a god, ruthlessly pointing at Lin Ling. In the skies, millions of thunderbolts condensed, turning into the lightning of thunder punishment that came crashing down. Seeing this, the entire street fell silent. They could see that the 36-world king had erupted with his strongest ultimate skill. This was because this was already a third-grade world origin martial art. Very good, very good. To be able to make me erupt with 90% of my strength, 36-world king. Even if you die, it will be a glorious death. But just as everyone thought that Lin Ling would use his full strength, an indifferent voice floated through the skies, causing countless people to gulp. When had they ever seen such a proud last generation? Let him be strong. A cool breeze brushed past the hills. So what if you are a third generation? You are arrogant and overbearing, but I am even more arrogant and overbearing. I despise you. Die. The 36-world king's voice was laced with madness. He didn't believe that Lin Ling was so fierce. At this moment, Lin Ling didn't speak. He sneered, holding the ancient sword horizontally. No one could see through his sword. It was as if his sword was pointing into the distance. But at this moment, a huge Xian character appeared. Like a sword array, it shot towards the lightning in the sky to destroy it. With his current strength, he really didn't have to worry much when facing the lightning draw technique. The reason why Lin Ling hadn't killed the 36 realm kings at the start was because he wanted to catch them all in one fell swoop. Secondly, he wanted to let the 36 world kings know of this enormous contrast. Rumble. The word Xian was dazzling and brilliant. There was nothing it could not destroy, and the sword cut through the heavens. The huge demonic thunderbolts that were falling from the sky were constantly being cut and chopped apart. Under the immense power of the sword, they were completely destroyed. In the end, the demonic lightning was completely destroyed. The dark clouds dispersed, revealing the blue sky. In the sky, the blue-robed young man was floating there, still holding his sword with a faint smile on his face, causing the earth to become even more silent. This was the strongest attack of the 36 world kings. Everyone thought that Lin Ling would be able to block it, but he would have to expend all of his strength. But now it seemed that this was far too simple. Breaking the lightning with a single sword. Is this fellow invincible? The 36 world king stood there, shivering. His confidence had been completely destroyed by Lin Ling. As for Lin Ling, he slowly walked through the skies towards the 36 world king. His pace wasn't fast, but every step seemed to step on the 36 world king's heart. It was as if the world spirit in his dantian had been stepped on, causing him to feel fear. This was also the first time in his life that he feared a last-generation king. If it were before, this would have been impossible. This was because there had never been a third-generation king that feared a last-generation king. But now, he felt that this wasn't a last-generation king, but a third-generation king. How do you feel about this enormous contrast? Lin Ling said as he walked. His words were calm, but the 36 world king felt a great humiliation. This enormous contrast made him feel as if he had fallen into hell. You've lost. As if he knew that the 36 world king had nothing more to say, Lin Ling condensed all of the world essence in his dantian, forming an extremely powerful sword that slashed out like a meteor. Shwa! This sword pierced through the 36 world king's body, causing him to tremble in the skies. Before you die, let me tell you something. The demon guardian master has already been killed by me. Lin Ling stood behind the 36 world king and slowly put the tyrant song sword back on his back. The demon guardian master is dead. You can kill him. Could this entire challenge have been a trap? Or were you waiting for me to challenge you? The 36 world king's complexion paled. He spat out these words with great difficulty. He suddenly understood. He understood everything. Lin Ling's strength had long since surpassed his. Before, he had only been waiting for him to jump into the trap. Lin Ling, how much strength did you erupt with to kill me? 90%. In truth, I could have killed you last time. I only needed to erupt with my full strength. Lin Ling began to walk towards the ground, causing the 36 world king's pupils to fiercely tremble. Lin Ling had killed him and still hadn't used his full strength. Was he really that weak to Lin Ling? Ka. Finally, with a wry smile on his face, cracks appeared all over his body before he finally exploded. Countless bolts of monster thunder shot out, finally disappearing into the skies. Radiant Academy's third-generation 36 world king had been defeated. Moreover, anyone could see that he had been completely crushed. There had been no hope of victory throughout the entire process. Even when the strongest divine thunder descended, Lin Ling had broken it apart with a single sword strike. This massive contrast left everyone on the street feeling as if it were unreal. In particular, those martial artists who had personally witnessed the battle between the two felt that it was even more unreal. Everyone who had challenged Lin Ling had been killed. He's dead. The 36 World King is truly trash. Grandmaster Xia and Liu Yanhong's lungs were about to explode from anger. They had been looking forward to this outcome, but this was the result they had received. How infuriating. Ancestor Dragon Granny looked at them with a mocking gaze. Then she stared at the youth walking down and said in a dignified voice, "His strength can be ranked in the 3rd generation." As these words fell, falling flour and flowing water felt their hearts shake. Lin Ling had passed the examination with them, and now they were still striving for the status of being the last generation. But Lin Ling had actually entered the 3rd generation. What a freak. Just how did this fellow cultivate? At this speed, I fear it won't be difficult for him to enter Three Ring City. They spoke out one after another. Even the Moonlight Swordsman joined in. The current him had no choice but to accept this result. How strange. He is clearly at the 4th stage of the World King realm, but he can erupt with the strength of a 7th stage world essence. Just what sort of arcane skill did he cultivate to increase his strength? How come I've never heard of this arcane skill before? Could it be the pre-celestial sovereign essence art? But that arcane skill can only increase one's strength by 2 boundaries. Even Lord 8 and Red Jade Tiger whispered to each other. At this time, they also felt that they couldn't see through Lin Ling. Then, as Lin Ling landed on the street, they couldn't help but laugh. And all around the street, a massive amount of cheers sounded out. He is truly worthy of being a martial god genius of Radiant Academy. His strength in jumping ranks to challenge others can be called heaven-defying. Chapter 2456. Strength Breakthrough, little friend Lin. As long as your rainforest market is open, I won't come here to buy things. Those rogue cultivators said politely. Lin Ling's barrier was powerful, and he was strong. They naturally wanted to build a relationship with such a junior. As for the last generation candidates, their eyes were filled with worship. They took Lin Ling as their role model and looked forward to the future. Rainforest Market, not only did it not close down, it used this opportunity to rise up. I'm so angry. The other market owners' faces were dark, as if they had eaten flies. They left with their tails between their legs. Of course, Master Xia and the others were the same. They disappeared without a trace like stray dogs. Thank you for everyone's support. Today, all the treasures in the Rainforest Market are 20% off. After Lin Ling rested for a while, he immediately looked at the crowd and smiled. He was very polite. In business, harmony was the most important thing. Lin Ling naturally knew this. Let's go to your market to take a look. The surrounding cultivators did not expect Lin Ling to be so amiable. After all, he had defeated 3 generations. Lin Ling should be very arrogant, so they immediately smiled and replied. Come, everything is 20% off. Gong Yangzheng took the opportunity to promote and led the crowd into the market. Looking at the excited crowd, the Xianyuan Gub and the others laughed. They looked at Lin Ling. As expected of their shopkeeper, no matter what kind of storm or wave, with him around, they could cross it. Even Ancestor Dragon Granny was secretly admiring him. Lin Ling, come here. However, at this time, the Red Jade Tiger let out a laugh, causing Lin Ling to quickly walk over. If not for this marshal helping him today, even if he, Lin Ling, won, it would have been a lot of twists and turns. When he arrived in front of the Red Jade Tiger, Lin Ling immediately bowed. Haha, you're really a guy who won't act until he sees a rabbit. The last time you saw me, you had a lazy attitude. Now you're acting like a shadow. As expected, if I don't help you once, you won't treat me as one of your own. Seeing this, Qiyu scolded with a smile. Hee, your excellency has spoken too much. Moreover, if your excellency does not help me, then you are not my excellency. Lin Ling said with a fake smile. Red Jade Tiger immediately rolled his eyes. As expected, Lin Ling was only willing to call him Lord when there were benefits. This is Lord 8th. Then, Qiyu introduced the middle-aged man beside him. Lin Ling had been paying attention to this person for a long time. At this moment, he immediately bowed. He was sure that this middle-aged man's lifespan was even longer than Li Xiaoyao's. He was an ancient character. No need to be so courteous. Lin Ling, you're very good. I didn't come here in vain today. Lord Eighth was very polite to Lin Ling, without the slightest bit of arrogance. Of course, Lin Ling knew that this was a relationship brought about by his strength. Without strength, such an expert wouldn't even look at him. You just entered the Resplendent Academy, but you already have the strength of a third generation. TSK, with this speed, you're the first in the 6 barracks. I have high hopes for you. Lord Eighth continued. As long as the Academy recognizes you as a third generation, you can also enter the Second Ring City. The world there is even more exciting, and it's very suitable for a shocking, monstrous genius like you. Thank you for the praise, Your Excellency, Lin Ling said perfunctorily. In fact, he wasn't just a third generation, he was also one of the top 3 experts of the third generation. Of course, he wasn't someone who liked to take credit, so he was too lazy to say it out loud. By the way, in a year's time, I hope you can participate in the battle on the drill ground of the great Azure Divine Dynasty. Lord Eighth smiled again and said, Your current strength is not bad, but don't be complacent. There will always be someone better than you. This subordinate understands. Lin Ling naturally understood this point. Not to mention other things, just my commandery and Grand Court commandery were eyeing covetously. Lin Ling had no choice but to be careful of those assassins. As for the battle on the drill ground of the great Azure Divine Dynasty, he wasn't very interested. However, Red Jade Tiger had helped him, so he would definitely agree on the surface. The autumn wind is bleak, and the flood is surging. The journey of the sun and the moon, if you can come out. All right, goodbye. Lord Eighth smiled boldly and didn't say much. He left with Red Jade Tiger, and the latter secretly transmitted a message to Lin Ling that Lord Eighth approved of Lin Ling receiving the Marshal's seal. This made Lin Ling realize that Lord Eighth had come here today to investigate him. However, Lin Ling wasn't very interested in the Marshal's seal. After that, Lin Ling returned to his market square. The market square was packed with customers. When those cultivators saw Lin Ling, they all greeted him politely and asked Lin Ling to refine Heaven Stage God cleansing pills. Lin Ling, I've already recorded all the customers who need to refine Heaven Stage God cleansing pills. They will provide the materials and pay more than half of the divine crystals. Gong Yangjiang said excitedly, moreover, we've set up a membership system. Cultivators who often come to the market square to buy treasures will receive a 20% discount and have the priority to refine God cleansing pills. You're not good at martial arts, but you're very interested in doing this. Hearing this, Lin Ling couldn't help but smile. It was very suitable for Gong Yangjiang to manage the market square. Next, Gong Yangjiang called Lin Ling and the others over to another secret room. Then, they divided the gains from Red Market Square. At this moment, falling flowers, flowing water, and the others were undoubtedly excited. These gains were extremely valuable. Lin Ling, as the leader, received 1,000,000 divine crystals. These were the profits of this period. Although it wasn't much, if the business was better in the future, then it would provide Lin Ling with an endless supply of cultivation resources. At night, the market square gradually quieted down. Lin Ling was teaching Xian Yuan Gub how to refine Heaven Stage God cleansing pills. Moreover, he had the God cleansing pills that he had previously refined for the latter to consume. After all, only when Xian Yuan Guber's talent reached the level of an awakened divine body could he refine Heaven Stage divine pills. Seeing that Xian Yuan Guber was refining the divine pills, Lin Ling also left. He had obtained a wisp of spiritual fox flame, which was enough for his fire attribute talent to increase again. As for his divine devil body, it had yet to reach the level of an awakened divine body. It was still a Xian body. However, after entering the academy, there should be a way to increase it. Following this, he used all the treasures he obtained from this adventure, as well as the divine crystals he obtained from the market square to increase his cultivation. Moreover, during this time, he also stayed in the market square to guide everyone's cultivation. Half a year quietly passed. Lin Ling naturally reached the 5th level of the World King realm. As for his second dantian, it didn't increase by much. But according to his evaluation, amongst the 3rd generation martial artists, there were very few that could match him. And on this day, Lin Ling called out to everyone and headed towards Radiant Academy. Lin Ling could already become a 3rd generation martial artist. He only needed to obtain the approval of the academy. As for Xian Yuan Guber and the others, they could become the last generation martial artist. The group of people happily arrived at Radiant Academy. Ancestor Dragon Granny was already waiting there, smiling as she looked at these juniors. It had to be said that as she saw these juniors crazily grow, she felt a deep sense of accomplishment. In particular, after seeing Lin Ling, her pupils shrank. This freak had made another breakthrough. Could it be that his cultivation didn't have any bottlenecks? Seeing this, Lin Ling wryly smiled and shook his head. He asked Senior Dragon, "Have Yu and the others returned?" Chapter 2457. Dandelion Hall, Sword Dao Department. They haven't returned yet, but I heard that they'll definitely return for the Great Azure Divine Dynasty's drill ground battle. They're monstrous geniuses just like you. Of course, they didn't spend as much time as you did. Ancestor Longpo explained. She suddenly realized that everyone who followed Lin Ling cultivated very quickly. Could this be what they meant by, when a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs follow him to heaven? Then, Ancestor Longpo led Lin Ling and the others into the Resplendent Academy. At this moment, everyone was excited. Even Lin Ling was looking forward to it. The Resplendent Academy was one of the 3 pillars of the Great Azure Divine Dynasty. Throughout history, these 3 academies had given birth to countless experts. They were the pillars of the martial god world. And now, among so many geniuses in the myriad of worlds, they were qualified to enter this place. After entering the academy, everyone realized that this place was extremely grand. There were mountains and seas, so vast that they couldn't see the end of it. Among the layers of buildings, there was an aura that could crush one's soul. This was the Resplendent Academy. Stepping on the seemingly endless stairs, an indescribable feeling floated in their hearts. It was as if they had arrived at the core of the universe. This is the Resplendent Academy. After a long time, Ancestor Longpo stopped and smiled. Lin Ling and the others looked up and saw a bright light in the sky. It was extremely dazzling, but what was surprising was that the light was only dazzling, but not blinding. Moreover, the light was even more dazzling than the sun. It couldn't be seen from afar and could only be seen in the academy. This showed that the light was extraordinary. The first ray of light in the universe. Lin Ling was shocked and muttered to himself. Hearing this, Xian Yuan Gub and the others sucked in a breath of cold air. The first ray of light? This was the ancestor of light. Hee, I didn't expect the Resplendent Academy to have the first ray of light. It's really extraordinary. It seems like the name Resplendent Academy came from this light. Inside Lin Ling's body, Queen Qianji was also surprised because this was her first time coming to this ancient academy. Be careful. This place isn't simple. Don't expose yourself. However, Lin Ling immediately said solemnly. He sensed that many gazes in this magnificent academy were looking over. The owner of those eyes must be stronger than Li Xiaoyao, so he had to be cautious. Hearing that, Qianji quickly entered her cultivation state. She did not dare to release her aura anymore. Fortunately, they were far away, so those experts did not notice anything. Lin Ling, you're quite knowledgeable. The Ancestor Dragon Granny looked at Lin Ling and said in shock, causing Lin Ling to smile and not say anything. Greetings, Master. At this moment, a woman wearing a red robe and carrying a long sword quickly walked over from afar and bowed slightly to Ancestor Dragon Granny. My disciple, Nine Void Cicada, the 2nd generation of Resplendent Academy. Ancestor Dragon Granny introduced. In Resplendent Academy, those exceptional talents who had aged had the qualifications to become masters and recruit disciples they admired. Greetings, 9th Senior Sister. Xian Yuan Gub and the others immediately bowed. Lin Ling also did the same. Moreover, he was surprised because he sensed that 9 Void Cicada had dual talents like him. One was ice and the other was wind. Her wind talent was a type of divine cicada that had reached the 3rd grade awakened divine body. As for her cultivation, she had reached the peak of the World King realm. Very strong, worthy of being a 2nd generation. Ancestor Dragon Granny also introduced 9 Void Cicada's strength, causing Xian Yuan Gub and the others to be filled with awe. To them, the peak of the World King realm was in existence as far away as the horizon. Everyone, there is no need to be too afraid of me. Among the 2nd generation, I'm just a beginner. 9 Void Cicada smiled and said, just a beginner and you're already so strong. What if you're ranked in the upper middle of the 2nd generation? Falling Flower's flowing water felt a great pressure and lost some of his confidence for a moment. Rice must be eaten one bite at a time, and the road must be walked one step at a time. No one can soar to the heavens in a single leap. As long as your goal remains the same, There will be a day when you reach it. When you look back, you will discover that the process is also very important. Lin Ling smiled, causing the pressure on falling flowers flowing water and the others to lessen. Yes, the road had to be walked one step at a time. Right now, they were biting off more than they could chew. This must be Lin Ling sure enough. Hearing about him is not as good as meeting him in person. Hearing these words, Nine Void Cicada immediately looked at Lin Ling. It was obvious that Ancestor Dragon Granny had introduced Lin Ling to her. Now that she saw him today, she immediately felt that Lin Ling was extraordinary. After all, Lin Ling was too calm when he saw her, but others wouldn't be like this. Moreover, falling flowers flowing water and the others' confidence had been shaken. But with just a few words from Lin Ling, they had regained their confidence. This proved that Lin Ling held a great weight in their hearts. Thank you for the compliment, senior sister. I was just lucky, Lin Ling also said humbly. His words made Nine Void Cicada feel that Lin Ling was easy to talk to. Ancestor Dragon Granny looked at the two of them with a smile, then said, Now, I'll take Xian Yuan Gub and the others to take the assessment of the last generation. Lin Ling, you go to the third generation. You're now a third generation, and you don't need to take the assessment. Take this jade token. It's the jade token that was finally given to you after a discussion by the seniors of the academy a month ago. Master, you can do that. Nine Void Cicada's expression changed slightly. She didn't know about Lin Ling's battle in the market, but she still nodded and bowed. She would take Lin Ling to the third generation. Lin Ling took the jade token from Ancestor Dragon Granny and didn't care much about it. He casually stuffed it into his clothes. Then everyone said goodbye, and Lin Ling followed Nine Void Cicada. After becoming a third generation, you can walk freely in the academy and enter the second ring city. The academy will also give you divine crystals every month. Now, junior brother Lin, what department do you want to enter? The academy has many martial departments, such as the sword principal department, the training department, the wind department, the thunder department, and so on. I want to go to the sword principal department first. All right, follow me. With Lin Ling's current strength, he was sure that no one in the third generation could defeat him. However, he would also use this opportunity to build a stronger foundation. The two of them crossed the mountains and soon arrived at the Dandelion Hall of the Sword Principal Department. In front of the magnificent hall, there were many people gathered in twos and threes. They were all people with extraordinary auras. Who's that? Senior Sister Nine Void Cicada. Is that your junior brother? He looks very young. He should have just been promoted to the third generation. But look, his clothes are still from the last generation, and he doesn't have a jade token. Lin Ling followed Nine Void Cicada and was a little different, so he attracted many people's attention. In Radiant Academy, different generations of disciples wore different clothes. From this, one could see that Lin Ling wasn't from the third generation. In fact, if it weren't for Ancestor Dragon Granny's reminder, Nine Void Cicada would also have thought that Lin Ling was from the last generation. There's no need to pay attention to them, Nine Void Cicada immediately said, causing Lin Ling to nod. He discovered that the youths here weren't weak at all. The worst of them were at the 7th level of the World King realm, and many of them were even stronger than the 36 World Kings. Of course, no matter how strong they were still only third generation. Chapter 2458. A single move shook the third generation. A short moment later, Nine Void Cicada stopped and said apologetically, because today is the Tao-seeking day for the third generation. We second generation can't enter, so we can only bring you here. Thank you, ninth senior sister. Lin Ling bowed and said. He stared at the mysterious and ancient hall in front of him with a curious look in his eyes. Nine Void Cicada waved her hand and turned around to leave. However, she hesitated for a moment before she turned around and said, If these people want to harm you, then endure it for now. Tell me later who's trying to make things difficult for you, and I'll get even with them. She seemed to be speaking to Lin Ling, but she was actually speaking to the third-generation disciples in the surroundings. She was clearly threatening them. Sure enough, the expressions of the third-generation disciples in the surroundings changed slightly, and they envied Lin Ling for having the support of a second-generation disciple. All right, Lin Ling watched as Nine Void Cicada left, and then he sat down cross-legged. Actually, he didn't really care about the third-generation disciples in the surroundings. He's really lucky. He's just entered the academy, yet he immediately has the support of a senior. I presume his background isn't weak. Humph. What kind of ability is it to rely on external forces on the path of cultivation? The last generation joining the circle of the third generation disciples is an insult to our style of cultivation. Since he's so formidable, why don't you try and humiliate him? Many people in the surroundings of the hall discussed animatedly. Some leaned against trees, some sat cross-legged, and some chatted in groups of 3 or 5. In their opinion, it was unavoidable for a newcomer to join the circle of geniuses. Actually, when they'd just become the third-generation disciples in the past, they'd been bullied by the seniors. Because of that, they would definitely play tricks on a newcomer. Perhaps it was to get revenge for the humiliation they'd suffered in the past. "Kid, what's your name?" Sure enough, a young man with a robust figure and long hair looked at Qin Shi. He seemed to be very polite, but his tone was filled with arrogance. It was as if he was the senior brother and Lin Ling was the junior brother. Lin Ling. Lin Ling sat cross-legged and cultivated, and he replied indifferently when he heard that. "Oh, then let me ask you, how did you get here? Could it be that you participated in the test of the third-generation disciples?" The young man asked again. The others instantly revealed expressions of interest. After all, it was a rare thing for the last-generation disciple to explain. "It's none of your business." However, Lin Ling did not answer. Such an answer undoubtedly caused the outside of the hall to fall silent. No one thought that Lin Ling would be so arrogant to actually answer their questions in such a way. "Kid, the waters of the Resplendent Academy are very deep. You might have some background, but there are many more people here who have bigger backgrounds than you. It's better to be humble." The burly youth frowned. "Thank you for the reminder. If there's nothing else, please don't talk to me. Let's just do our own things." Lin Ling looked over with a calm expression. He was naturally able to discern that the third-generation descendants in the surroundings felt disdain towards him. However, he didn't intend to cause any trouble because it was rather boring. However, even if he didn't want to cause trouble, it didn't mean that others would let him go. After all, no matter where he was, the weak had the least dignity. In everyone's opinion, if they asked Lin Ling questions, then Lin Ling should respectfully answer and not have such a lazy attitude. Therefore, the voices of dissatisfaction grew more and more. "Sai, isn't it better to just mind our own business? Why bother meddling in other people's business? To put it bluntly, none of you here is a match for me. I only need one move to defeat you." That saying, "the waters are very deep," is actually very practical to use on you guys. The chaotic voices undoubtedly made Lin Ling sigh softly. He didn't want to cause trouble, so he was a little more forceful. After all, he couldn't possibly lower his voice to those who were weaker than him, right? One move. Don't think that you can be so arrogant just because you have ninth senior sister's support. That youth was completely enraged. The other third-generation descendants' pupils also constricted. They didn't expect Lin Ling to be so arrogant. Where did this junior come from? How can he be so arrogant? When I was training in the Myriad Worlds, he wasn't even weaned yet. Humph. Have you participated in the third-generation battle? Have you participated in the last-generation battle? I don't think he has. I don't know where his confidence comes from. Humph. I asked Shin Tian before, and he said that in the past few hundred years, there was no information about that youth in the last generation. It seems that he is a newcomer among newcomers. He can't even be considered a true last generation. Sigh. There were more and more voices in the surroundings. Sigh. Sigh. Lin Ling sighed again and stood up. He said to the youth from before, "I'm sorry. In order to keep things quiet, I'll make a move. You have to be careful from now on." Sigh. As soon as he said that, the voices from before immediately disappeared. What? The last generation is going to make a move. And he even said hello to the burly youth before making a move? What is he playing at? Even the burly youth thought that Lin Ling was crazy. After all, if he really wanted to make a move, shouldn't he, a third-generation descendant, be the one to make the first move? However, reality proved that Lin Ling was a man of his words. Bang! Lin Ling took a step forward and pounced on the burly youth. No matter what kind of genius you are among the third-generation descendants, it's useless against me. Sigh! His fist struck out cleanly, and it even had flames erupting from it. The space-time fire roared. The awakened divine physique appeared at the same time. Divine light protection. The youth still wanted to be angry, but at this moment his pupils constricted. In the Resplendent Academy, Not every third-generation descendant had awakened a divine body, but all the second-generation descendants had awakened a divine body. This meant that Lin Ling had the potential to become a second-generation descendant. Of course, it was only potential. Scarlet flower dazzling palm. Bang! The youth immediately erupted with all his strength. His talent and world essence fused, turning into a surging palm that collided with Lin Ling's. Unfortunately, it was useless. Bang! When the fists collided, it was as though two powerful worlds were colliding. In the next moment, the young man's body flew backwards and smashed into the wall of the large hall in the distance. If Lin Ling had not held back, the wall would have been shattered. Then, a figure slid down the wall and fell to the ground unconscious. Seeing this, the hall fell into a deathly silence. Defeating a third-generation descendant with one punch? Now, can you be quiet? Quiet! Lin Ling slowly walked back. Everywhere he passed, there was silence. In the world of martial arts, strength was the best proof. Lin Ling already knew this, so in the face of all sorts of dissatisfied voices, simple and crude methods were the best. Seeing Lin Ling sit down cross-legged once more, the eyes of those around him flashed. They didn't think that Lin Ling would be so strong. It's him, Lin Ling. He defeated the newcomer of the 36 World Kings not too long ago. That battle has caused an uproar in the last generation. Yes. Finally, someone seemed to recall something. He defeated the 36 World Kings? How is that possible? Did he do something to it? Yes. I don't know, but I'm sure he won. Most importantly, he passed the assessment not too long ago. Oh, so that's how it is. No wonder he's so arrogant. He isn't some newcomer. Yes. The surrounding third-generation descendants began to whisper, their moods becoming even worse. They had experienced countless tribulations before finally becoming third-generation descendants, standing above tens of thousands of people. But now, Lin Ling had caught up to them in the blink of an eye. This left them envious. Chapter 2459. How do you want to play? At this moment, a sneer was heard and a thin young man walked out. He was wearing a long green robe, and his long hair was tied behind his head. He had the demeanor of an expert as he walked. There were a few people following him who seemed to be his followers. They all had fawning expressions on their faces. Chen. Seeing this, many of the third generation's faces changed slightly. They quickly saluted him because he was ranked in the top 20 among the third generation. However, Lin Ling was unmoved and continued to cultivate with his eyes closed. Lin Ling, I've heard of your name. I've even been waiting for you. Chen spoke again. You've killed many of the martial gods in our Tating Commandery. At this moment, Lin Ling finally opened his eyes. Tating Commandery? This Tating Commandery really has a deep heritage. Geniuses come in waves, like chives that can never be cut down. Lin Ling also knew that as a vassal state of the Great Qing Divine Dynasty, Tating Commandery would definitely kill him if they had the chance. Therefore, Lin Ling would not let anyone from Tating Commandery go. Previously, Lin Ling did not want to cause trouble, so he used his strength to shut everyone up. However, now Lin Ling might not do the same. He said indifferently, "Is there no one else in Tating Commandery? Let a person like you, who has no second thoughts, talk about me?" Lin Ling, I know you have some skills and defeated the 36 Realm King. However, don't forget that his strength is only average among the third generation. You're just lucky that you didn't meet me. Chen's eyes were cold. Then he laughed and said, however, killing is not allowed in the academy. I'll spare your life for now. After you're driven out of the Dandelion Palace, we'll have a life and death battle outside the academy. Now, get out of my sight. Seeing that I'm in a good mood, I'll let you live. His words seemed to be a reward for Lin Ling. However, no one thought he was arrogant. After all, the 36 Realm King was not at the same level as him. Lin Ling could defeat the 36 Realm King and was only average among the third generation. Hearing this, Lin Ling's eyes flickered. He suddenly looked at the Dandelion Palace and said, "In that case, how about we have a bet? What if I can enter the Dandelion Palace?" Many mocking voices came from all directions. Today's Dao seeking was something only the third generation disciples were qualified to attend. Even the second generation elder sister Ninth didn't dare to enter. Okay, let's make a bet. How do you want to play? Chen was stunned, and the smile on his face became even more ferocious. In his opinion, Lin Ling was simply courting death. In fact, he was very displeased that he had spared Lin Ling's life earlier. Who would have expected that Lin Ling would actually deliver himself to his doorstep? As for whether Lin Ling could enter the Dandelion Palace, that was a joke. Resplendent Academy was one of the 3 great divine academies of the Azure Province. The rules were extremely strict, and no one could violate them. If one had the strength of a 3rd generation's disciple, but had not passed the test, they were not considered a 3rd generation disciple. If you lose, bring your face closer and I'll slap you. How about it? Lin Ling sneered. Although he did not know how to enter the Dandelion Palace, Ancestor Dragon Granny had given him a jade token and acknowledged his identity. Ancestor Dragon Granny would not lie to him. Seeing Lin Ling agree so easily, someone immediately asked, Lin Ling, did you go to the battlefield of ruins and participate in the battle of the 3rd generation? No. Lin Ling shook his head. Huh. Everyone laughed even louder. If he did not participate in the battle of the 3rd generation, then he was not a 3rd generation disciple. Lin Ling was indeed courting death. Good, as expected of Lin Ling. You're straightforward. I agree to this bet. If you lose, bring your face closer and I'll give you a hard slap. Qian Chen laughed heroically. He was like an invincible god of war, exuding a powerful aura. Senior brother Qian, you're amazing. There was no lack of bootlickers around. They immediately flattered Qian Chen. So handsome. There were even some girls who secretly threw flirtatious glances at Qian Chen. Then they stared at Lin Ling with contempt. They were not optimistic about Lin Ling at all. It was obviously impossible for a newcomer to gain a foothold in the Resplendent Academy. Lin Ling was simply an idiot. Everyone be my witness. The surrounding voices finally lifted Qian Chen's mood. He laughed in a carefree manner. As an expert ranked 20th among the 3rd generation disciples, who would not give him face. Don't worry. If he loses, he can't deny it. We're looking forward to the applause. Without any suspense, voices of support rose one after another. Seeing this, Lin Ling's smirk deepened. At this moment, a sky full of dandelions fluttered out of the main hall. It was extremely beautiful. The sky around the main hall turned into a starry sky. It was the chaos of the universe. The dandelions seemed to have come from the chaos of the universe, making the main hall sacred and magnificent. Chaos energy. Lin Ling's eyes flickered as he looked at the floating dandelions. He was surprised. This senior dandelion was very strong. Moreover, he had 3 swords. This made Lin Ling look forward to it even more. The dandelion main hall is open. After the dandelions appeared, many excited voices came from the main hall. Rumble. In front of the main hall, an ancient black stone tablet rose from the ground. The pitch-black stone tablet gave off an extremely strong pressure. At the entrance, an old man wearing a red robe walked out. He had 8 swords on his back and his aura was cold as he said, "All 3rd generations, prepare to enter." Soon, someone walked toward the gate. The ancient stone tablet emitted light, as if it was confirming the person's identity. However, he was indeed a 3rd generation disciple, so he entered easily. Then, the 3rd generation disciples entered one after another. Lin Ling, it's your turn. Don't tell me you're thinking of running away at this time. I'm telling you, don't even think about it. Qian Chen suddenly became aggressive. He was looking forward to a good show. Hearing this, Lin Ling smiled faintly and strode toward the gate. You're not wearing the 3rd generation's green robe? The old man frowned as he looked at Lin Ling. The 3rd generation disciples all wore green robes. I don't have a green robe. Lin Ling looked at the old man and said. The old man frowned even harder. Many people around couldn't help but laugh secretly. Then, do you have the 3rd generation's jade token? The old man asked again. I'm sorry, I don't have such a thing. Then you've participated in the 3rd generation's assessment. I don't have it either. Facing the old man's questioning, Lin Ling kept shaking his head. The old man's aura became colder and colder. What was this junior playing at? This guy is really arrogant. The eyes of the people around trembled. They knew that Lin Ling wasn't qualified to enter, but they didn't expect that Lin Ling would be neither arrogant nor humble in front of such a senior. He didn't know anything. Wasn't he just playing with the senior? One should know that the senior was Dandelion's sword servant. He was an extremely hot-tempered existence in the Resplendent Academy. Then what are you doing here? Sure enough, the old man's aura burst out. It was like 10,000 swords returning to their master. Haha, there's a good show to watch. Maybe Lin Ling will be obliterated. Qian Chen couldn't help but sneer. It seemed that he didn't need to do anything. However, the fact was that the old man's eyes were like swords. He had already begun to attack Lin Ling. Chapter 2460. The world of 10,000 swords. The black ancient stone tablet emitted light, but it did not stop Lin Ling. This meant that Lin Ling had passed the stone tablet's test and had the qualifications to enter the Dandelion Palace. As for the old man, he had raised his arm high and was about to attack, but at this moment he was shocked, because after passing the Universal Combat Tablet's test, this meant that Lin Ling indeed had the qualifications. The third generations who wanted to watch a good show were all stunned, their mouths wide open and speechless. Lin Ling had the qualifications? What was going on? Even the old man could not react in time, but his face was not as cold as before. He said slowly, "You have something on you that represents the third generation? I don't know what the third generation needs, but I do have it." Lin Ling immediately nodded and took out a red jade token from his clothes and handed it to the old man. His attitude was still as indifferent as before. He did not know what the jade token was, but he was sure that he could enter the palace. The old man looked at Lin Ling strangely and took Lin Ling's jade token. He frowned and looked at it, and his expression became more and more interesting. Second generation potential jade token. In the end, his voice became sharp, and it even carried a wisp of madness. His previously cold face now revealed a smile. It was a smile that was close to flattering, because this jade token represented the potential of the second generation. In the third generation, there were less than 10 people who had this jade token, and he was the sword servant of the Dandelion Palace Senior, and also the second generation of the older generation, so he naturally knew the significance of this jade token. From a certain point of view, Lin Ling's status was higher than his. After all, he was an old genius, and Lin Ling was a rising genius. Come in quickly, I have neglected you before." The old man's attitude changed 180 degrees. In fact, he didn't know that in the past month, the upper echelons of the Resplendent Academy had already held a meeting regarding Lin Ling. At that time, they had decided to give Lin Ling the second-generation potential token. "Little friend, you should have told me earlier that you have the second-generation potential token. You almost caused me to make a mistake. If Lady Dandelion finds out, she will definitely punish me." The old man's voice carried a bitter smile. Looking at the old man's flattered appearance, Lin Ling seemed to feel that the jade token given to him by Ancestor Dragon Granny wasn't simple. He immediately shook his head helplessly. "I really don't know what this thing is." Hearing this, the old man was speechless. He had such a jade plate, yet this brat was indifferent to it. How many people would die from jealousy? "Can I go in now?" Lin Ling asked, not wanting to dwell on the previous topic. "Yes, of course you can." The old man smiled and nodded. His appearance reminded people of two words: flattery. Such an expert actually flattered Lin Ling. This undoubtedly made everyone's jaws drop. "Senior, are you seeing things? He is nothing. How can he enter the Dandelion Hall with a broken jade token? I think you must be seeing things." Qian Chen was stunned. After witnessing the conversation between Lin Ling and the old man, he shouted angrily. "Noisy!" Unfortunately, the old man's attitude towards him and Lin Ling had changed 180 degrees. Qian Chen's forehead was covered in cold sweat when he heard that. He finally reacted. Previously, he was reprimanding this senior. He was simply courting death. "Lin Ling, you have guts." Then, Qian Chen looked coldly at Lin Ling. Today, he had lost a lot of face. After all, a large number of third-generation experts had flattered him before. Now, he had disappointed them. "Whether I have guts or not is none of your business. Now, it seems like you've lost. So, you should show me your face." Lin Ling stood at the door and said indifferently, "What do you mean I've lost? I don't know what happened before. Don't mention it now. Otherwise, I don't mind teaching you a lesson in front of the seniors." Qian Chen's expression changed, and he immediately played dumb. The third-generation experts around him were silent. Although they were witnesses, they would definitely not side with Lin Ling. Someone even said, "Everyone, let's go in. It seems like there's nothing left." Obviously, compared to Lin Ling, the newcomer, the crowd was more afraid of Qian Chen, who was ranked within the top 20. Seeing this, Lin Ling smiled. Bang! He took a step forward. Like a demon, he pounced towards Qian Chen with a speed that surpassed the speed of a world. Since Qian Chen refused to pay, he would do it himself. Slap! A crisp slap suddenly rang out and resounded in front of the great hall. No one thought that Lin Ling would slap Qian Chen's face as soon as he said he would. Qian Chen was also stunned. His cheeks began to inflate like a balloon, and a clear palm print could be seen. Lin Ling had slapped him. Furthermore, he had slapped him in front of everyone. How could he, a third-generation genius, show his face in front of everyone? Even the women who had previously idolized Qian Chen widened their beautiful eyes. In their hearts, this man who was like a god of war was no longer as arrogant as they had imagined. "Do you know what you're doing?" Qian Chen stroked his cheek. His voice was extremely low and filled with murderous intent. "I'm slapping your face. Can't you see?" Unfortunately, Lin Ling turned a blind eye. Instead, he calmly turned around and left. "I want you to die." Qian Chen was on the verge of madness and had lost all reason. He pounced towards Lin Ling in an attempt to kill Lin Ling. Unfortunately, Lin Ling remained indifferent because he could guarantee that once Qian Chen's attack landed on his body, he would instantly kill the latter. Hence, he was waiting for the other party to attack. However, before Lin Ling could make a move, the elder had already made his move. Hundreds and thousands of swords shot out and surrounded Qian Chen. As long as he took a single step, his blood would splatter everywhere. "Try and move." The elder's voice was like thunder, causing everyone's hearts to pound. This elder had actually made a move on Lin Ling's behalf. This has exceeded their expectations. After all, this was Lin Ling's first time here, while Qian Chen had been here a few times. However, the difference in treatment between the two was like the difference between heaven and earth. This made everyone curious about the jade token. What kind of jade token would allow a newcomer to receive the elder's attention? "Get lost!" The elder roared angrily once again. Me. Qian Chen had obviously suffered the greatest humiliation of his life, but what else could he do but leave? He could only glare hatefully at Lin Ling before striding away. "You're asking for your own humiliation." Lin Ling did not even look at him as he strode into the Dandelion Palace's main hall. How could this fellow be so powerful? Outside the main hall, unsurprisingly, cries of surprise filled the air. No one expected Lin Ling, a newcomer, to stir up such a bloody storm upon his arrival at the third generation's camp. There was nothing in the Dandelion Palace's main hall except for swords that had been stabbed into the ground. It was as if one had entered the world of 10,000 swords. Furthermore, as the crowd entered, the swords began to sway. What a powerful chaotic energy. Chapter 2461. Senior Dandelion. The hall was very quiet. After everyone entered, they chose a sword one after another and sat down. Gradually, there were more and more people. Jianba is here too. He has come a total of 365 times. Suddenly, someone cried out in surprise. Their gazes swept around and landed on a young man with an ancient sword on his back. Shockingly, he was the strongest person in the Sword Dao department among the third generation. As expected of a swordsman, he had the arrogance of a swordsman. After entering, he didn't even bother to look at the crowd. After finding a sword, he sat down cross-legged. "I heard that he likes Senior Dandelion. That's why he often comes here. His goal is to get Senior Dandelion's attention." Someone said in a low voice. "You're courting death. If Jianba hears you, he'll definitely kill you. He's the second martial god in the third generation." Someone immediately reprimanded him, causing the expression of the person who spoke before to change. He no longer dared to speak. How can Senior Dandelion be absent from his sermon? Right at this moment, another young man walked in through the door. He had long golden hair, and there were 2 dazzling swords hanging from his waist. They made him seem like the chosen one of the heavens. This was obviously another expert from the Kendo department. It's young Master Long Lin. Many people immediately stood up and bowed to the young man. The young man smiled faintly and waved his hand. He seemed to be used to this kind of attention. He calmly sat down cross-legged under a sword. Young Master Long Lin smiled at me. Just like the rumors say, he's quite approachable. Among the third generation, the second in the Sword Dao department isn't as arrogant as Sword Tyrant. His sword is an immortal treasure that has been upgraded by 1 level. It's called the Dragon Scale Sword. It's said to be made from the scales of a divine dragon. Young Master Dragon Scale's reputation was obviously better than Lord Long's, so there were more people who worshipped him. At the same time, young Master Long Lin also looked at Jianba. Jianba seemed to sense his gaze and immediately smiled disdainfully. He, Sword Tyrant, did not care about the number 2 person in the Sword Dao department at all. Lin Ling could not help but shake his head when he heard the voices around him. These martial god realm geniuses might seem impressive on the surface, but they were actually quite normal when facing someone stronger than them. They would be afraid, wary, and curious about the geniuses. And such a person had the time to care about others, but did not think of ways to improve himself. No wonder his cultivation speed was so slow. However, Lin Ling was still slightly surprised by the dragon scale sword. It wasn't that he hadn't seen dragons before, but dragons were also divided into different ranks. For example, the wild dragon was a dragon that appeared in the myriad of worlds, and the dragon ancestor was a dragon that appeared in the universe. However, the divine dragon was obviously more noble, and it was rare to see one even in millions of years. Using its scales to forge a sword, this sword was indeed extraordinary. Everyone is here. Today, as usual, we will use the sword to seek the Tao. At this moment, an indifferent voice rang out. A woman in a long black robe walked out from the front. She carried 3 long swords on her back, looking like the peerless 3-sword style. She was not devastatingly beautiful, but she was extremely cold and aloof like a plum blossom. Most importantly, her strength had reached an extremely terrifying level. Lin Ling stared at the woman. He was sure that if he were to fight with her, he would not be able to withstand a single strike from her. She was indeed worthy of being called a senior. Of course, although the woman was dressed conservatively and looked ordinary, the 3 swords on her back, coupled with her unique aura, were extremely attractive. It was no wonder that some of the 3rd generation's gazes were filled with longing, especially Sword Tyrant and young Master Dragon Scale. They secretly licked their lips. As swordsmen, they did not care about ordinary women at all. Only powerful female swordsmen were the most attractive to them. Therefore, Senior Dandelion was the object of their longing. For this reason, they had come here many times. I've cultivated countless sword daos, and now I'll give you all guidance. How much you can learn will depend on your abilities. Humph. At this moment, the black-robed woman sat cross-legged, and a sharp sword aura filled the air. It was elegant and cold, and it caused the surroundings to turn into a chaotic world. Swords seemed to shoot out from a myriad of worlds. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At this moment, the surroundings turned into a world of swords. Everyone's sword swayed and shot into the sky uncontrollably. My sword, return. Return. However, it was obviously not the first time that the 3rd generation's swords were here, so they suppressed their swords and did not allow them to be unsheathed. Gradually, many people's swords quieted down. However, at this moment, a black ancient sword soared into the sky like a flying dragon, floating in the chaotic world. This sword was undoubtedly extremely attractive, causing many people in the hall to laugh mockingly. Young Master Dragon Scale looked up and revealed a disdainful expression. Looks like there's another pretentious person who doesn't know anything about swords. Return. Then, he ignored the sword in the sky and entered a state of cultivation. It's Lin Ling, haha, shame on you. Haha. The crowd seemed to know who the owner of the sword was, so they could not help but secretly laugh at him. Only those who weren't familiar with the path of the sword would be unable to control their swords and allow them to leave their scabbard. Of course, the 3rd generation's first time here would also be like this. After all, they weren't familiar with the rules here. And in Dandelion Hall, if one couldn't control their own sword and caused it to leave its scabbard, that would be an extremely shameful matter. After all, a swordsman's sword existed. If the sword existed, the person existed. If the sword died, the person died. However, the woman called Dandelion's eyes brightened. This was because she could see that Lin Ling was about to enter the world of 10,000 swords. This was why Lin Ling's sword had floated up. When an ordinary person entered the world of 10,000 swords, they would need an incense stick of time to enter a state of enlightenment. At that time, they would naturally be able to suppress their swords. But, if one entered a state of enlightenment quickly, they would forget to suppress their swords. When did such a fellow appear in the 3rd generation of Resplendent Academy? Dandelion muttered to herself. Then, as she investigated, her eyes brightened. This was because Lin Ling had a 2nd generation potential token. This meant that he had the potential to become a 2nd generation. Moreover, Lin Ling had actually defeated a 3rd generation. If she wasn't wrong, then Lin Ling was only at the 5th level of the World King realm. This fellow isn't simple at all, Dandelion thought to herself. In her mind, These young swordsmen were divided into ranks. Sword Overlord was undoubtedly the first. He had awakened his divine body, the Sword World body. Moreover, he came from Sword World and had comprehended the sword since he was a child. He was extremely fierce. The second was Sir Dragonscale, but his strength came from the Dragonscale sword. The third was someone like Lin Ling. I wonder who will be able to find a sword path that suits them. Dandelion's lips curved up in a smile. She was looking forward to it. At this time, in the world of 10,000 swords, countless swords weaved back and forth. It was an extremely dazzling sight. Here, it was as if all the sword paths of the 10,000 worlds had gathered. And this was indeed the case. The sword paths here were vast and endless. There were 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and even 5th grade. They were also divided into general, commander, king, and emperor levels. The emperor level corresponded to a 5th grade sword path martial skill. This was something that no one had ever managed to comprehend. Chapter 2462. Two swords compete, but soon, some people failed. Those people found the corresponding sword path martial arts, but after comprehending it, the complex sword path exceeded their limits, so they were forced to withdraw. It could be seen that, firstly, it was very difficult to find a powerful sword path martial art. Secondly, even if one found it, comprehending it was even more difficult. I comprehended a commander-level sword path. Suddenly, someone shouted in pleasant surprise. It was a young woman with a pretty good appearance. She was extremely excited because she had come here 99 times to comprehend a sword Dao. Moreover, she had finally succeeded after persevering tirelessly. It's Jian Wuwei. Some people who woke up said enviously. Jian Wuwei's sword path was sharp, and he had a good reputation in the southern border. She found a commander-level sword path martial art, which was a 3rd grade martial art. It was indeed rare. Sigh, I failed. Sword path is too vast, as mysterious as the universe. Another person started to fail, shaking his head and sighing. This swordsman who failed was a bit greedy and insisted on comprehending a commander-level sword path martial art. Unfortunately, it was not something he could comprehend. Only monstrous geniuses could comprehend it successfully. I almost comprehended a general-level sword path. Another person said regretfully and opened his eyes. He also cultivated a sword path martial art. Unfortunately, he had come here many times, but he still could not comprehend it successfully. Shame, it's just a 2nd grade sword path martial art, but you failed again and again. How can you call yourself a swordsman? Many people said disdainfully, making that person's face dim. He was very unwilling. This time, there is only 2 hours to comprehend the sword path. If you can't comprehend a sword path, you can only come back a year later. Those swordsmen who woke up shook their heads. More and more people are waking up, which means that their comprehension is not enough. Only Jian Ba and young Master Long Lin are the most powerful. They are competing for a king-level sword path. So powerful. How can they have such monstrous comprehension? Their ultimate sword path has already reached the realm of intricacy. Many people discussed spiritedly, and they stared at the 2 strongest swordsmen with eyes full of worship. Look at Lin Ling, his sword is still dancing in the sky. At this time, someone cried out in surprise. Many people looked over and could not help but laugh mockingly. It seemed that Lin Ling could not even control his own sword. Get out! At this moment, young Master Long Lin shouted faintly. A huge sword Dao rushed out and knocked down Lin Ling's sword. This was because he was comprehending the most crucial king-level sword Dao martial arts. But Lin Ling's sword was flying back and forth in the sky, distracting him. Haha. Seeing this, many people couldn't help but laugh. At this moment, Lin Ling's soul power lingered in the sky. He also sensed that someone had attacked the tyrannical song sword. However, he did not pay attention to it. Firstly, his sword kept flying and might have disturbed others. This was his fault. Secondly, the tyrannical sword only fell to the ground and was not damaged, so he did not care. What he cared about was the dancing swords in the sky. Those swords weaved back and forth with lightning speed. They were all kinds of sword martial arts, which aroused his interest. In the past, Li Xiaoyao had a deep understanding of the sword Dao, but he was not invincible. Therefore, Lin Ling was very curious when he encountered a sword Dao martial art that he had never seen before. I've cultivated this before. Give up. The Lunar Luo sword takes the path of lightness and is famous for its speed. It doesn't suit me. I'm more suited for a large sword with great power. Give up. Commander-level sword Dao martial art. Single sword of Mount Zhongnan? Although the attack power is not bad, it's a pity that its level is too low. If I've comprehended it, I'll have to learn other sword moves after my strength increases. Give up. Lin Ling kept thinking to himself. It was rare for him to come here, so he would learn the best. This caused the sword above his head to constantly weave through. This scene was also seen by Dandelion. She let out a puzzled sound. It was too strange. This kid had clearly captured many sword Dao martial arts, but he did not learn any of them. What was he trying to do? Although her voice was soft, everyone present was a genius, so they could easily hear her puzzled voice. What? Senior Dandelion is actually paying attention to Lin Ling? Lin Ling is a guy who can't even suppress a sword. How can he? Haha. Senior Dandelion should be angry at Lin Ling for biting off more than he can chew. Look at Lin Ling. He still hasn't chosen a sword Dao martial art. He's still picking. Haha. Time is almost up. If things don't go well, he might have come here for nothing. Haha. The surrounding swordsmen were stunned for a moment before they immediately let out mocking laughter. They could also see that Lin Ling was constantly giving up on sword Dao martial arts. He had even given up on commander-level sword Dao martial arts. Such a mentality was too unstable. Even some female swordsmen coldly snorted. This was because they specialized in the handsome sword Dao and had spent 49 times to comprehend it. As for Lin Ling, in the face of a commander-grade sword Dao martial art, he was actually disdainful. This Lin Ling thought too highly of himself. Ignore him. Look at Sword Tyrant and young Master Long Lin. Haha. More and more people woke up. They were all staring at Sword Tyrant and young Master Long Lin. This was because comprehending the sword required comprehension power. Once one comprehended to the limit, they would withdraw and then digest what they had comprehended. However, Sword Tyrant and young Master Long Lin were still comprehending. This meant that their comprehension power had reached the monstrous level. King level, tisk tsk, they are all king level. I wonder who will succeed. I think it's Sword Tyrant. He has already comprehended the Qianquan Haoran sword twice, and this is the third time. Who knows, he might become the first person in the Resplendent Academy's Sword Dao department to comprehend a king-grade sword Dao 3 times. Yes, 3 times. It took him 3 years. Amazing. Impressive. Young Master Long Lin is not weak either. They represent the 3rd generation of dual sword Dao martial arts. Yes, everyone's emotions were stirred up. It was as if they saw 2 dazzling swords soaring into the sky, representing the Resplendent Academy and defeating all the swordsmen of the 2 great academies. Oh, pain. At this moment, a painful voice sounded. Young Master Long Lin opened his eyes with a pale face. His eyes immediately revealed a look of unwillingness. Obviously, he had failed. If he forced himself to continue comprehending, he would have suffered from qi deviation. The sword floating above his head was a dazzling golden sword. The sword was like a dragon. It was the Dragon Emperor 8 Directions sword from the ancient divine dragon world. It had reached king level. This was a 4th grade sword Dao martial art. However, although he did not succeed in comprehending it, he was not far from it. This was his 3rd time comprehending it. Coupled with the fact that the level of the martial art was high, no one mocked him for failing. Instead, many people admired him. What? Sword Tyrant is still comprehending it? Sword Tyrant. Then, young Master Long Lin's gaze swept over, and his face instantly turned ugly. Especially when he saw Senior Dandelion staring at Sword Tyrant, he felt even more uncomfortable. This was because Senior Swordsman, whom he admired and even longed for, was not looking at him. Sword Tyrant is also comprehending king-level Sword Dao, and this is his 3rd time as well. However, he will definitely fail. Young Master Long Lin envied. Young Master Dragon Scale said enviously. Unfortunately, his wish had failed. Chapter 2463. Emperor-level Sword Dao. For a moment, countless eyes were on Jianba. Even Senior Dandelion was the same. Her cold eyes carried a hint of expectation. Coming to the world of 10,000 swords 3 times, if he could comprehend a king-level Sword Dao martial art, then he would break the record of Resplendent Academy. After all, the most recent attempt to comprehend a king-level Sword Dao had taken him 5 years to do so. Senior Dandelion, fortunately, I did not disappoint you. At almost the same time, Jinba stood up. His long hair fluttered in the wind, and the ancient sword behind him hummed. For a moment, the hall was silent. Could it be? He succeeded? Everyone exclaimed in surprise. Even though the sword tyrant didn't say anything, they'd already guessed the truth. How could this be? Young Master Long Lin clenched his fists in anger. He was even more unwilling. Jinba stood proudly, enjoying the admiring gazes of all the swordsmen. However, he did not say anything. Instead, he looked at Senior Dandelion with a burning gaze. Because he wanted Senior Dandelion to ask him personally. Sure enough, Senior Dandelion pondered for a moment and said indifferently, "Did you successfully comprehend the Qinquanharan sword?" Yes. Jinba had been waiting for this moment because he had attracted Senior Dandelion's attention. In fact, he had been waiting for this moment for 3 years. I succeeded. Yes. Jinba nodded indifferently. At this moment, the ancient sword behind him blossomed with endless light. You really succeeded. Admirable. Yes. I couldn't even find a king-level sword Dao. I didn't expect Jinba to not only find it, but also successfully comprehend it. Yes. Among the swordsmen of the 3 great academies, who else could be better than him? I think that Songling Academy's #1 swordsman, Long Patian, is qualified to be his opponent. Yes. I heard that Long Patian died in a place called the Rising Sun Boundary. This means that in terms of sword Dao, who can compare to Jinba? Yes. Although they already knew the result, when Jinba personally admitted it, they still exclaimed in surprise. Very good. You have created a new record in Resplendent Academy. The first time you came here, you found a king-level sword Dao martial art, and succeeded on the 3rd time. Dandelion couldn't help but laugh. Her cold smile was also very beautiful. Jinba was overjoyed. He had fallen in love with this senior since a long time ago. He pondered for a moment and was about to invite Senior Dandelion to discuss martial arts with him. However, at this moment, the myriad worlds in the sky emitted a surging sword cry. All the swords submitted and stopped flying. A black sword flew out like a demon king and floated above the head of a young man. Ashura sword formation. Looking at the sword, Senior Dandelion seemed to have forgotten about Sword Tyrant and could not help but exclaim. At this moment, the gazes of everyone were locked onto the sword. Everyone seemed to have forgotten about the Sword Tyrant because they'd noticed that the sword was extremely extraordinary. Once the sword was drawn, all swords would submit. This was the first time they'd seen such a thing. In fact, even Senior Dandelion hadn't seen much of it. Emperor-class sword Dao, she asked solemnly. Boom. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire hall seemed to have been struck by lightning. Everyone's hearts thundered. One must know that in the myriad worlds, sword Dao martial arts were broad and profound. Wanting to find a king-class sword Dao martial art was like looking for a needle in a haystack, let alone the emperor class that was above the king class. As for emperor class, it was a 5th grade boundary origin martial art. It only appeared in the hands of true God realm experts. Which sword Dao genius is it? Yes. Everyone's gazes shifted. When they saw the young man under the black sword, their hearts instantly jumped uncontrollably. Because that was Lin Ling. This guy had been looking for sword Dao martial arts all this time. He was picky and looked extremely unstable. Who would have thought that this guy actually found an emperor-class sword Dao? Bastard. Yes. Young Master Long Lin and Jinba both shouted angrily at the same time. Today was supposed to be their moment. Who would have thought that a trash that couldn't even suppress a sword would appear and overpower them at the crucial moment? Especially Jinba, he was the most furious. After all, he almost asked Senior Dandelion out. But now, Senior Dandelion seemed to have forgotten about his existence. At this moment, Lin Ling didn't know that everyone was looking at him. He was rather happy in his heart. Previously, he had been constantly selecting and comprehending those sword Daos. Finally, after comprehending 80% of the sword Dao martial arts, the mysterious black sword appeared. He instantly felt that this sword Dao was very suitable for him. It was at least a 5th grade sword Dao. With this sword Dao martial art, he wouldn't have to change his martial arts for a long time. It's you. Lin Ling's 10,000 mammoth demonic eyes appeared and stared at the sword. At the same time, the ultimate sword Dao appeared in his body. The true realm of Dao, which was stronger than the hyperfocus realm, enveloped the sword. However, the sword was like an Azura demon king. It kept resisting and seemed to refuse Lin Ling to comprehend it. In front of me, do you have the ability to resist? Unfortunately, Lin Ling coldly shouted in his heart. The powerful true realm of Tao suppressed it from all directions, gradually allowing him to see the birth of a universal Azura. This was an ancient sword Tao martial art that had been lost for a long time. It used the world origin sword to set up a sword array and destroy the enemy. This sword Tao martial art was extremely overbearing. It gave birth to powerful chaotic energy. It was divided into 5 stages. The first stage, the Azura sword array, gave birth to 49 Azura swords. If God blocked it, it would kill God. If Buddha blocked it, it would destroy Buddha. The second stage had 9981 swords. The third stage had 168 swords. The Emperor-level sword array was indeed terrifying. If I didn't have the 10,000 mammoth demonic eyes and the ultimate sword Tao, I wouldn't have been able to control this sword array. Lin Ling thought to himself. What? At this moment, everyone in the hall exclaimed again because they saw that the black Azura sword was actually swaying. Could it be that Lin Ling had comprehended this Emperor-level sword Tao martial art? Impossible. The Emperor-level sword Tao martial art requires comprehension ability. The requirements are very strict. How could a trash who can't even control the sword successfully comprehend it? However, Jianba's words brought everyone back to reality. They felt that it was true. Moreover, time is up. Young Master Long Lin sneered. Senior Dandelion shook her head helplessly. She had wanted to see a miracle, but it was obvious that she had thought too much. Even if Lin Ling could comprehend it, there wasn't enough time. Whoosh! Sure enough, the thousands of swords began to retreat like a tide. The world of 10,000 swords gradually disappeared. Obviously, the 2 hours were up. At the same time, Lin Ling opened his eyes. However, when he saw the gazes around him, he was a little stunned. How do you feel about the Emperor-level sword Tao martial art? Then a calm voice drifted out. It was Senior Dandelion. She wanted to see if Lin Ling had gained anything. It's okay. It didn't disappoint me. Lin Ling nodded. Senior Dandelion was stunned. She thought that Lin Ling would talk about the difficulties he had encountered when comprehending the sword Tao martial art. Who knew that Lin Ling would say that it was okay? Suddenly, she was disappointed. Chapter 2464. Sword Strength Test. Haha, is this fellow here to make a fool of himself? It's so rare that he came to the 10,000 sword world and didn't choose any sword skills, but chose an Emperor-level sword Tao. Is that something he can comprehend? Ridiculous. He's truly a ridiculous fool. He must be regretting it to death. This is the fate of being greedy. Ridiculous. Maybe he can't even comprehend a general-level sword Tao. Because he's too bored, he chose an Emperor-level sword Tao to draw our attention. Ridiculous. Your guess is correct, but being able to find an Emperor-grade sword Tao is also a kind of ability. Ridiculous. Without any suspense, there was a great deal of laughter from all around. Even Sword Overlord and Sword Overlord couldn't help but laugh. However, they were still a bit annoyed with Lin Ling. After all, Lin Ling had indeed attracted Senior Dandelion's attention. This was the same as ruining their good fortune. Of course, for someone like Lin Ling, they would slowly teach him a lesson once they left this place. The laughter from all around left Lin Ling even more startled. He didn't understand what these people were laughing at. The reason he said it was okay was because he had successfully comprehended it. Moreover, he could use all 6 layers of the Azura sword array. Of course, this required him to have a corresponding cultivation boundary. Currently, he could only use the first layer. But it had also greatly increased the might of his sword Tao. It could be said that this cultivation had made up for the flaws in his sword Tao. As for the fire attribute, Lin Ling had the heretical god transformation, and the sword Tao department had the Azura sword array. His strength had risen by 30%. Currently, he had the confidence to fight an 8th or 9th stage world king. Shaking his head, Lin Ling didn't bother to say anything more. If they wanted to laugh, then so be it. Then, Lin Ling picked up the tyrannical song sword and turned to leave. His indifferent appearance left Senior Dandelion surprised. She thought that this youth wouldn't be willing to accept the ridicule from all around, but who knew that the youth's reaction would be so calm? It was a kind of indifference, even disdain. No one is allowed to leave. However, as soon as Lin Ling moved, young Master Long Lin shouted, "As a swordsman, we must show off our abilities and move forward bravely. Although I failed to comprehend today, it does not mean that my swordsmanship is weak. Therefore, according to the usual rules, Let us test our strength at the Huanyu battle tablet in front of the gate. His words were clearly directed at Sword Tyrant. However, the irony was that he seemed to want more people to be his witnesses, so he didn't allow anyone else to leave and made them spectators. Hearing this, Lin Ling couldn't help but open his eyes wide. This fellow is so bored. You seem to be competing with him. This has nothing to do with me. I have something to do, so I'll leave first. Lin Ling naturally wouldn't participate in such a boring game. His words caused young Master Long Lin's pupils to dilate. You dare? Jianba glared angrily at Lin Ling as well. Actually, he approved of young Master Long Lin's suggestion, because only then would he be able to shine even more dazzlingly. You talk too much. Unfortunately, how could Lin Ling not dare? He wanted to leave. Let's wait for a while. There is indeed a rule for comprehending swordsmanship here. Before leaving, everyone has to demonstrate their swordsmanship strength. Senior Dandelion also spoke up. Since this senior had spoken, Lin Ling still had to give face. Of course, he still felt very bored and wanted to see Xian Yuan Gub and the others quickly. Let's go to the gate. The other swordsmen were very enthusiastic. They also wanted to see how much their swordsmanship had improved after comprehending this time. Everyone pushed and pulled Lin Ling into the crowd as they walked towards the door. At the gate, the old man was still guarding there. After seeing everyone, he knew why they were here. He immediately took a few steps forward and let the black stone tablet appear in front of everyone's eyes. This stone tablet was the one used to check everyone's identity. It was also a sword training stone. It was said that it was left behind by a sword god in the martial god world. It had universal swordsmanship and could check a swordsman's overall strength. This is the Universal Combat Power Tablet. It can test the attack of a sword, the comprehension of the ultimate sword Dao, and the strength of your swordsmanship. Everyone, take turns. Senior Dandelion said calmly. Soon, someone walked forward excitedly and pulled out his sword. Clang! His sword slashed on the stone tablet and instantly, it shone brightly. 500 swordsmanship strength. This was the swordsmanship strength of the integrated sword Dao. Good, it has increased by 100 swordsmanship from last time. The genius who pulled out the sword couldn't help but shout excitedly. Old Cliff Swordsman, you have been here more than 20 times, right? Only 500 swordsmen now, trash. However, someone immediately laughed disdainfully and pulled out his sword. He slashed hard, and the words on the stone tablet immediately appeared. It was 600. Wow, that's amazing. It seems like this is Wu Yaokong's 5th time here. His overall swordsmanship is already so high. The crowd exclaimed, and the swordsman nodded proudly. He was overjoyed. It was every swordsman's wish to be able to fight against swordsmen from all over the world. Next, everyone took turns to go up and see the level of their swordsmanship strength through the stone tablet. 1,000 swordsmanship. He actually has 1,000 swordsmanship. He is only relying on that sword. Otherwise, it would be 700 at most. The swordsman's swordsmanship includes many things. There are ultimate sword Dao, swordsmanship martial arts, and swordsmanship. So, it's normal for him to rely on his sword. Everyone started to talk about it. Lin Ling was bored. With his experience, he could naturally tell what the stone tablet was. It was not even an ancient expert's sword training stone. It was called the Heavenly Curved Sword Stone. It was indeed able to test one's swordsmanship strength. However, its hardness was very low. 100,000 swordsmanship strength would be enough to break it. I wonder how Xian Yuan Gub and the rest are doing. Lin Ling then muttered to himself. Senior Dandelion, who was not far away, was stunned. As a swordsman, he hated being inferior to others the most. Now, there was actually someone who did not care about this kind of swordsmanship strength test. This was a little surprising. It's my turn. At this moment, young Master Long Lin walked out. He pulled out both swords and a dragon roared. Twin dragons emerging from the sea. A dazzling sword appeared. It was like a twin dragon that could easily cut apart a world. Rumble. The stone tablet was dazzling, and a dazzling light erupted. 30,000 swordsmanship strength. Seeing this, the surrounding swordsmen forgot to breathe. This was too abnormal. This meant that young Master Long Lin's ultimate sword Dao, swordsmanship martial arts, chaotic energy, and swordsmanship were all extremely powerful. After all, the stone tablet could only test one's swordsmanship strength and not other powers. Therefore, if one's cultivation level was high but did not understand the sword, the stone tablet would not emit any light. Looking at his proud sword, young Master Long Lin could not help but laugh. He then looked at Senior Dandelion and said, "Senior, how is it?" "Not bad. This is your third time here, but you managed to erupt with 30,000 swordsmanship strength. It's extremely rare." Senior Dandelion nodded in satisfaction. This made young Master Long Lin excited. Previously, he had lost to Jian Ba when he comprehended the sword Dao. Now he finally suppressed Jian Ba. Then young Master Long Lin looked at Jian Ba mockingly and said, "Swordsmen are proud. How can they admit defeat so easily? Moreover, comprehending the sword Dao doesn't mean anything. Only swordsmanship is the symbol of a swordsman." The crowd immediately looked forward to it. It was Jian Ba's turn. They wondered who was more powerful in this battle between dragons and tigers. "Do you think you're very powerful? You only rely on the sword in your hand. A true swordsman hides his sword in his heart. Watch me defeat you with an immortal treasure with an ordinary weapon." Chapter 2465. 100,000 sword force. Everyone's eyes flickered. What Jian Ba said made sense. After all, young Master Long Lin was using an immortal treasure forged from the divine dragon scale armor. "You're too weak." Almost at the same time, Jian Ba drew his sword. He had the aura of an overlord of the sword. Rumble. The sword was like a torrent of the sun, moon, and stars. The stone tablet was almost cut in half. A moment later, a dazzling light bloomed. Frightening numbers also appeared in a shocking manner. 50,000 sword force. There was no suspense. The surroundings were silent. All the swordsmen looked at Jian Ba with admiration. Young Master Long Lin stood there in a daze, his face pale. He had wanted to crush Jian Ba with his immortal treasure. Who knew that Jian Ba would defeat him with the help of a precious weapon? Jian Ba's sword principle might not be too strong. Ultimate sword principle, minute subtlety, and king sword principle martial arts. No wonder. Senior Dandelion couldn't help but exclaim. This made Jian Ba even more proud. He knew that young Master Long Lin was asking to be humiliated by competing with him. "It's your turn now. Let me see if anyone can surpass me." After that, Jian Ba proudly looked at everyone and said, only when everyone had passed the test would he be able to prove how outstanding he was. "Okay, I'll do it." Next, the swordsmen drew their swords. Unfortunately, not even 10,000 sword force. This showed the gap between them. The proud smile on Jian Ba's face grew wider and wider. It was as if he was the ruler of the world. As time passed, all the swordsmen seemed to have finished their test. "Wait, what about you? Why don't you go?" At this moment, Jian Ba suddenly looked at someone. That person was leaning against the door and drinking wine as if it had nothing to do with him. That person was Lin Ling. In fact, Lin Ling had disrupted his show. He also had a little resentment towards Lin Ling. At this moment, he naturally wanted to let Lin Ling know how lowly he was. Moreover, everyone had been tested except for Lin Ling. Therefore, Lin Ling was no exception. Everyone has taken the test, but you didn't take the test. Are you looking down on everyone? Young Master Long Lin also let out a cold shout. He was unhappy that he had lost to Jian Ba. When he saw Lin Ling's indifferent expression, he was even more unhappy. "Haha, what right does he have to look down on you? He's just afraid of losing face, so he doesn't dare to take the test." The crowd also burst into laughter. Lin Ling couldn't even suppress his sword at the beginning. In addition, when he was comprehending the sword Dao, he had captured the Emperor-level sword Dao, but he didn't succeed in comprehending it. Therefore, no one thought that his sword force was very powerful. "Sigh, how boring. You guys have won. Is that enough? I really don't have time." However, Lin Ling's expression remained calm as he sighed. As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd fell silent. Then, even crazier laughter rang out. Haha. Sword Tyrant couldn't help but laugh because Lin Ling actually admitted defeat. However, he still shook his head and said, "No, according to the rules, everyone has to be tested. You are not an exception. You should take the test too. It's good to be familiar with your own sword force." Even Senior Dandelion shook his head helplessly. He felt that Lin Ling didn't look like a swordsman. He didn't have the sword heart of a swordsman. Hearing this, Lin Ling shook his head again. He knew that if he didn't take the test, these people wouldn't agree. Since Senior Dandelion had spoken, he would give it a try. In fact, there's no need for this universal combat steel. As a swordsman, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will win every battle. If I'm not familiar with my own sword force, how can I be a swordsman? Lin Ling walked out and said calmly. His words had undoubtedly infuriated everyone. This guy who was at the bottom was so arrogant. He wanted to teach them a lesson? Deliberately mystifying. Later, if your sword force doesn't exceed 200, you will swing your sword 100,000 times. Sword Tyrant said disdainfully. He didn't care if Lin Ling was weak, but he was still so arrogant. He was simply courting death. Hearing this, Lin Ling laughed sarcastically. I know you want to attract Senior Dandelion's attention, but be careful not to fail miserably. Are you saying that you caused me to fail miserably? Haha, I, Sword Tyrant, have risen in the world and defeated countless swordsmen. In the martial god boundary, among the 3 generations of the 3 big academies, there are no more than 5 people who can be my opponent. Even the number 1 swordsman in the Tsang Ling Academy, Long Patian, I'm only 3 moves weaker than him. Do you think you are qualified to talk about me? Sword Tyrant couldn't hold it in anymore and laughed sarcastically. Lin Ling shook his head. Long Patian? Sorry, that guy was killed by him in the Rising Sun boundary. He said to himself, I can only say that the swordsman you met was useless. Haha. As soon as he said this, the laughter around him became even louder. For a guy like Lin Ling, there should be a limit to his bragging. Then, someone saw that Lin Ling actually picked up a tree branch and waved it around like a sword. Haha, this guy can't be thinking of using a tree branch as a sword, right? Young Master Long Lin thought that Lin Ling seemed to be stupid. Could it be that being at the bottom wasn't enough, so he wanted to be at the bottom? However, Lin Ling didn't seem to hear the voices around him. He looked at Senior Dandelion calmly and said, Senior, I have 2 questions for you. Can I ask you? Ask away. At first, Senior Dandelion thought that Lin Ling was somewhat extraordinary. However, after experiencing all this, her evaluation of Lin Ling was that he was biting off more than he could chew and couldn't see through himself. Therefore, her attitude became somewhat cold. First, this combat prowess tablet is broken. I don't have to pay for it, do I? Second, after the test, can I leave? When Lin Ling asked these 2 questions, the crowd almost rolled on the ground in laughter again. Even Senior Dandelion laughed and said, Sure. She thought that Lin Ling was more of an idiot than she had imagined. How could this combat prowess tablet be broken so easily? As for after the test, Lin Ling could of course leave. Even if Lin Ling wanted to stay, she wouldn't bother to see him. Hurry up and do the test. Don't be like an idiot trying to please the crowd. Seeing that Lin Ling had only said a few words, Sword Tyrant was already impatient. Did he have to be so shameless? However, as soon as he finished speaking, a black light flashed. The next moment, a tree branch flew into the sky and stabbed into the ground. As for Lin Ling, he turned around and left. In fact, if it wasn't for the fact that I gained something from the world of 10,000 swords, I wouldn't have the time to play such a boring game. A real swordsman gains his sword's strength through life and death struggles. He doesn't know his sword's strength through tests. Lin Ling's voice floated in everyone's ears at the same time. Everyone was stunned. What was going on? Lin Ling had finished the test? Only Senior Dandelion saw Lin Ling draw his sword. It was very, very fast, and there was an indescribable aura. It seemed to be the aura of Azura. Moreover, she could clearly sense that Lin Ling's ultimate sword Dao seemed to be the true realm of Dao. Because she was in this realm, she was extremely familiar with it. However, how could this be possible? A 3rd-generation swordsman, who came to the Dandelion Palace for the first time, had the true realm of Dao? This must be fake. However, just as she was thinking, a crisp sound rang out at the same time. Crack! At this moment, cracks appeared on the stone tablet that was erected on the ground, and a dazzling number shockingly appeared. 100,000 sword strength. Chapter 2466. The end of the last generation examination, those people were all standing there in a daze. Some of them even thought that the Huan Yu battle tablet had suddenly broken down. It seems his Omega Sword Dao really is the true realm of the Dao. The Dandelion muttered to itself and drifted out like a gust of wind. The Sword Tyrant's pupils constricted when he heard this, and he remained silent for a long time as he gazed at the figure that was leaving. Didn't Lin Ling say that he had to force him to use his sword? At that time, the light of the Sword Overlord would disappear. But now his light had indeed disappeared. Lin Ling's sword had stolen all of his light. It was as if he had smashed his own foot with a rock. Wait, what level of sword art did you use just now? Suddenly, Senior Dandelion shouted. The universal battle power steel did not look at one's cultivation base, but only at one's sword energy. Since Lin Ling was able to break it, it meant that his ultimate sword Dao was extremely powerful. It was at the true realm of Dao. However, it was still not enough to break the steel. Therefore, she was very confused. Emperor-level Ashura sword formation. An indifferent voice drifted out from the young man's mouth in the distance. That voice was very calm, and there was no arrogance in it. There was only a hint of helplessness brought about by the boring actions of the crowd. Emperor-level. All the swordsmen fell to the ground with a plop. Their expressions were very interesting. They felt that they were very ironic. They actually mocked others. Pa! The two swords in young Master Dragonscale's hands also fell to the ground due to shock. Previously, Lin Ling had found an Emperor-level sword Dao martial art, but he had limited time. He didn't believe that Lin Ling would be able to successfully comprehend it. Even if he had enough time, an Emperor-level sword Dao martial art wasn't something that an ordinary person could comprehend. But now the facts had proven everything. That young man had actually succeeded in comprehending it in such a short period of time. It could only be said that this fellow's comprehension ability had already surpassed all the monstrous geniuses. Senior Dandelion had naturally thought of this as well. It seemed like the first record of the Sword Dao department was probably created by that fellow. However, what made her the most speechless was that after creating such a miracle, that guy actually had an indifferent look on his face. It was as if he had no desire to show off, and even felt that it was boring. A swordsman is not here to show off. The test of swordsmanship is a test of life and death, not the universal combat tablet. She muttered to herself as if she had understood something. The surrounding swordsmen also smiled bitterly. They finally knew why the young man was so lazy. It was because he was truly disdainful. After being surprised, Jianba's face became even more ferocious. Right now, it seemed like no one was paying attention to him, which made him very angry. He felt as if he had been ruthlessly slapped in the face by Lin Ling, making him feel ashamed. After Lin Ling left the Dandelion Palace, he immediately went to look for Xian Yuan Guer and the others. What happened before was indeed quite boring to him. Yo, a 5th grade boundary origin martial art. You actually managed to comprehend it in such a short time. Your comprehension ability is too monstrous. Qian Ji Queen's voice came from his sleeve. Have you forgotten? I have the myriad devil eyes. Lin Ling said with a smile. I see. Aya, I am so envious. Aren't you afraid that I will gouge your left eye out while you are sleeping? Qian Ji Queen knew that the myriad devil eyes was extremely powerful. Although it did not seem to have any attack power, its supportive ability was one of the top 10 talents. It was even one of the 6 great godly eyes of the universe. She could not help but feel excited. However, Lin Ling's next sentence extinguished the fire in her heart. You still need my help to make a divine pill. Before that, you will not touch me. After all, if a blind man makes a divine pill for you, you can't guarantee that the divine pill will be effective. Qian Ji Queen cursed in her heart after hearing that. This little fox. As Lin Ling walked forward, he saw a large number of 3rd generation and last generation. They looked anxious and hurried, as if they were rushing to cultivate in seclusion. If these martial god geniuses were placed in the myriad worlds, they would be the rulers of the world. They could have anything they want. Unfortunately, in the martial god world, they are just ordinary people who work hard every day to become stronger. Lin Ling could not help but sigh. In the path of martial arts, there was no such realm. When you defeated all your opponents and enjoyed the sense of accomplishment and superiority, you suddenly realized that there were people stronger than you. You, who had been in a high position for many years, naturally wanted to surpass those people. Thus, you once again entered a state of bitter cultivation. This was the joy of martial arts. Sometimes the result was important, but the process was also very attractive. Although everyone knew this, no one could give up on the pursuit of martial arts. When the strong were angry, millions of corpses would fall. No one could give up the feeling of being a supreme existence. You should be content. As far as I know, you have just entered the Resplendent Academy. However, you are already invincible among the 3rd generation. Your growth speed is very fast. Qian Ji Queen suddenly said. It is still too slow. However, Lin Ling shook his head. His goal was too far away. Therefore, he would never feel that his cultivation speed was fast. After all, Tian Liuli was now above the 9 continents. At least, Lin Ling was not qualified to see her yet. Moreover, he still had some things to solve. For example, Grandma Wendao. Lin Ling also wanted to see her. Unfortunately, it required a corresponding strength. Lin Ling had a feeling that when his strength reached a certain level, he would be able to see Grandma Wendao. I wonder how Grandpa, and Mother are doing. Then, Lin Ling thought of his family and friends in his hometown. Qianji Queen was stunned. She did not expect this arrogant monster to have such a side to him. On the way, Lin Ling asked the passersby for directions. Then, he walked towards the location of the last generation examination. All the candidates of the last generation were allowed to participate in the examination. Therefore, not only were there disciples from Lin Ling's generation, but there were also disciples from the same generation as Lin Ling. The examination was very strict. After a long time, it finally came to an end. Those who passed were all overjoyed. They finally became the last generation and were qualified to enter the Resplendent Academy. As for those who were eliminated, their faces were filled with unwillingness as they looked enviously at those who had passed the test. Guber, how did it go? I passed. That's great, I passed too. Falling flower, flowing water sword, how about you guys? Fortunately, I did not disappoint. I am the last generation now. Zhongwen wanted to make things difficult for me. Unfortunately, I will not let him do as he wishes. Xian Yuan Good and the others walked out from the crowd. They were all very excited. This group of people had actually passed the test, causing the surrounding youths to be extremely jealous and envious. After all, only a few hundred people passed out of tens of thousands of people. Moreover, those who passed knew each other. This was a rare situation. It's those two bastards again. On the other side, a few well-dressed women walked out from the crowd. They snorted coldly as they walked. They'd passed as well. They'd originally thought that they were the favored daughters of the heavens in this test. But in the end, once Xianyuan Gub and Tang Yue appeared, their brilliance immediately dimmed. Chapter 2467. You guys can't enter my eyes, you're too weak. Humph, I heard that they're from the Martial God Battalion. These two bitches are really lucky. They actually helped the Martial God Battalion gain face this time. A tall and slender woman said with disdain. She wore armor and had an exquisite figure. She was the Grand Commander of the 10,000 Phoenix Battalion. The 8 battalions were divided into the Martial God Battalion, War God Battalion, Thousand Chance Battalion, 9 Stars Battalion, Myriad Phoenix Battalion, and Heaven Tribute Battalion. These 8 battalions were under the jurisdiction of the Great Azure Divine Dynasty and had given birth to many geniuses over the years. Hey, Xian Yuan Guber, right? Don't think that you can be proud just because you became the last generation. There are many people who became the last generation in the 8 armies. The tall and slender woman suddenly shouted, causing the surroundings to become silent. It's Ho Xiaoyan, the female genius known as the Swallow King. Many people thought to themselves. They didn't know if today's assessment was due to the overabundance of females and the decline of males. Many female geniuses were more powerful than male geniuses. Ho Xiaoyan was ranked in the top 10. Of course, compared to Xian Yuan Gur, her results were still weaker. It's those bitches. Tang Yue's beautiful eyes immediately looked over. During the assessment, she had quite a few conflicts with those bitches. Thank you for the reminder, but I'll return the same words to you. Xian Yuan Guber smiled and replied, not to be outdone. Hee hee, you're getting stubborn. Let me give you a piece of advice. Since we're all from the same sect, it's best for you to keep a low profile. On account of the fact that we're all from the 8 military camp, I may not pursue this matter with you. Ho Xiaoyan opened her mouth again, her words mixed with a threatening tone. It could be seen that although she was a woman, as the Grand Commander, she had her own dignity. She also wanted to tell everyone that she was the queen of the last generation. You're insane. Tang Yue smiled disdainfully. As a princess, how could she submit to others? Xian Yuan Gub was like a little witch. Naturally, she rolled her eyes and wanted to leave with a few people. Stop right there. Ho Xiaoyan was immediately furious. The few women beside her were also the same. They had never seen such an unappreciative person. That person over there is called Falling Flowers Flowing Water Sword, right? Your results in this test were not as good as mine, so it will be difficult for you to rise in the Resplendent Academy. If you want to do well, then come to my side. Ho Xiaoyan sneered and said again. And go boy, join us. You'll have a much brighter future than following Xian Yuan Guber. What's more, you're a dignified genius, yet you're following behind a woman. Where is your dignity as a man? Another woman said, They seem to want the two Xian Yuan Gub to be betrayed and left alone. However, their words were very sarcastic. After all, if the chess boy and the others followed Xian Yuan Gur, they would not have the dignity of a man. But if they followed them, would they have the dignity of a man? You are all candidates for the last generation of the new batch, while we are from the previous two batches. In Resplendent Academy, we know a lot more people. You should consider it carefully. Don't do anything that you will regret. Isn't that right, everybody? Under the voices of those women, voices of agreement sounded from the surroundings. It was obvious that Ho Xiaoyan and the others had quite a reputation in the last generation. Of course, they had been here for many years, so it was not strange for them to have such a reputation. Unfortunately, Falling Flowers Flowing Water soared, and the others laughed mockingly and shook their heads. Idiots! This was because they were not following Xian Yuan Gur, but the man who followed Xian Yuan Gur, the lord above them. How audacious! What kind of bewitching potion did Xian Yuan Gur and Tang Yue feed them? When they heard the disdainful voice, Ho Xiaoyan and the others instantly clenched their teeth. They originally wanted to establish their might, but in the end, they were rejected. Those two women from Xian Yuan Gur were really troublemakers. Xiaoyan, did you pass? However, at this moment, a smile suddenly sounded, and a young man with long purple hair and two horns on his head slowly walked over. This person was extremely handsome, and he was already wearing a green robe. A green robe? This was obviously the last generation. Senior brother Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian. When she saw this, Ho Xiaoyan immediately exclaimed and revealed a charming smile. The latter had the bloodline of the Duan clan in the Western Territory, and his inheritance had been passed down since ancient times. He was young, but he was already the first deputy general of the 8 Armies Heaven Tribute Camp. Among all the geniuses in the 8 Armies' previous batches, he was the strongest. In fact, he was indeed formidable. In just a few short years after becoming the last generation, he was already ranked 3rd among all the last generations. It's Duan Ling Tian. Many of the last generations in the surroundings exclaimed in surprise. They obviously knew Duan Ling Tian. This was a genius whose strength and identity surpassed them. Senior brother Duan Ling Tian, we've all passed. However, there were 2 bitches who mocked us. They've gone too far, Ho Xiaoyan said sweetly. She no longer had the domineering aura from before. Oh, so arrogant? The young man frowned slightly. It's them. They're from the martial god camp. Ho Xiaoyan pointed at Xian Yuan Gur and the others. Moreover, she looked at Xian Yuan Gur and said indifferently, You went too far. However, now that my boyfriend is here, he'll definitely uphold justice for me. Boyfriend. It was obvious she was showing off on purpose. Even so, this still caused the eyes of the last generations in the surroundings to be filled with reverence. They did not expect Ho Xiaoyan to have such a powerful background. The gazes from the surroundings made Ho Xiaoyan puff out her chest proudly, as joy filled her heart. You bullied my woman? Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian said as he looked at Xian Yuan Gur and the others. His voice was calm, but it contained an indescribable domineering aura. However, after carefully looking at Xian Yuan Gur and the others, Duan Ling Tian's eyes gleamed. Compared to Ho Xiaoyan, the 2 women seemed to be more attractive, especially the little devil. Her facial features were exquisite, and her body was delicate. It was very tempting. Naturally, with so many people around, it was impossible for him to take the initiative to invite them. Therefore, he remained indifferent. Moreover, he believed with his identity and strength, Xian Yuan Gur and the others would make the right choice. Perhaps, the 2 women would take the initiative to come to him tomorrow. We bullied her? Xian Yuan Gur and Tang Yue looked at each other, and could not help but laugh. Previously, they could not be bothered with Ho Xiaoyan. It was Ho Xiaoyan who did not let them off. Who was the one bullying who? As expected, birds of a feather flocked together. No, it should be snakes and rats from the same nest. Xian Yuan Gur and Tang Yue said one after another. As soon as these words left their mouth, the expressions of the people in the surroundings changed slightly. They did not expect the 2 women to be so arrogant, even with Duan Ling Tian around. Were they seeking death? Ho Xiaoyan, on the other hand, was furious. She immediately said to Duan Ling Tian in a sweet voice, Look at them. They're too rude. Brother Ling Tian, you must stand up for us. In truth, Duan Ling Tian was not very angry. Instead, he felt Xian Yuan Guer and the others were very unique. I'm a very reasonable person. Right is right, wrong is wrong. Now that you're in the wrong, but you refuse to admit it, I think you must have something to rely on. All right, show me your reliance. Chapter 2468. I'm her man. Too weak. Along with the last two words, the surrounding air seemed to have become oppressive. These two words were bold and domineering, but many people nodded, as possessing a strength in the top 3 of the last generation was sufficient qualifications to say these words. As expected of senior brother Ling Tian, Ho Xiaoyan couldn't help but laugh. Her narrow and long eyes swept the crowd, and she almost shouted out loudly. See, this is my man. Xian Yuan Ge, Tang Yue, I couldn't compare to you in the test earlier, but in terms of men, can you compare to me? At this moment, her vanity was greatly satisfied. But she thought that Xian Yuan Ge and the others would be afraid. However, she was going to be disappointed. Xian Yuan Ge and the others seemed as if they didn't know who Duan Ling Tian was, and they only smiled indifferently, a smile that didn't care at all. Don't compare men. All of you can't compare to her. Meanwhile, a light laugh drifted out, and everyone saw that the person who spoke was the Moonlight Swordsman. This genius's results in the test this time were not bad, so his words carried weight. But in terms of men, the men of Xian Yuan Ge were more formidable? This was a joke. Could it be that you want to say it's you? Ho Xiaoyan glanced at the Moonlight Swordsman with a gaze filled with contempt. However, the Moonlight Swordsman shook his head and didn't explain anything. Looks like all of you insist on being stubborn. Perhaps all of you don't know what the last generation is, or what the top 3 are. Perhaps all of you think that since you've become the last generation, your strength and status are very high. Unfortunately, all of you are thinking too simply. The Resplendent Academy is filled with geniuses, and the depth of this water is beyond your imagination. Duan Ling Tian didn't get angry from the beginning until the end, because he really couldn't get angry when facing these ignorant new students. All of you will see what the top 3 of the last generation is. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure moved like a ripple that floated towards Xian Yuan Ge, shapeless and colorless, extremely graceful. What a strange movement technique. Many people's pupils constricted when they saw this, as they were unable to see through that martial technique. I won't harm you. After all, it doesn't conform to my identity, but I'll tell all of you what reality is. An indistinct voice floated out from Duan Ling Tian's mouth at the same time, and it seemed as if it floated out from the chaos of the universe. Xian Yuan Ge and the others didn't expect that Duan Ling Tian would suddenly make a move. Moreover, Duan Ling Tian's strength to the point that they were unable to react. However, right at this moment, a figure appeared in front of Xian Yuan Ge, and his palm had silently stretched out. Slap! The wave-like figure was immediately caught. His fist was caught by a palm. Instantly, Duan Ling Tian's pupils squinted. Who's this person? He's actually able to see through my water ripple realm technique. He couldn't help but raise his head, and he saw a tall young man standing before him. The young man had long hair tied behind his head, and he was handsome and extraordinary. Moreover, the young man's calm eyes were looking at him indifferently. Are you seeking death? The person who appeared in front of Xian Yuan Ge was Lin Ling. Who are you? Although his fist was caught, Duan Ling Tian was not afraid, because Xian Yuan Ge was not wearing the green robe that represented the last generation. I'm her man, Lin Ling said indifferently. You seem to want to make a move on my woman. Scram. Xian Yuan Ge. Bang. Duan Ling Tian fell to the ground like a kite with its string cut. His face was covered in dust, and it caused the surroundings to fall silent. Duan Ling Tian possessed the strength of the 3rd strongest person in the last generation, and yet he was defeated with just one move. Ho Xiaoyan was stunned as well. She could not believe her eyes. Lin Ling, you're here. Xian Yuan Ge was the only one who could not help but smile. She was overjoyed because she liked that sentence very much. I'm her man. This sentence was domineering and powerful, but it was filled with determination. At this moment, her heart was filled with pride. Compared to her man, Ho Xiaoyan's man was like the light of a firefly. Ho Xiaoyan did not expect that a young man would suddenly appear and send her man flying. She hurriedly asked worriedly, Brother Ling Tian, are you all right? I'm fine. I'm fine. I was careless for a moment. Duan Ling Tian stood up with a slightly savage expression. He stared at Lin Ling and said, "You're from the martial god camp as well?" "Yes, I'm the first deputy general of the martial god camp. I'm also the strongest person in all the camps this year," Lin Ling said indifferently. Lord Eighth had told him about this before, so he was certain. "Haha, interesting. I'm the #1 genius in all the camps as well. However, I'm a few years older than you. In this way, you can be considered as half a junior brother of mine." Duan Ling Tian could not help but laugh. He was wondering who Xian Yuan Ge was, but it turned out that Xian Yuan Ge was merely the #1 genius in the 8 armies this year. As long as Xian Yuan Ge was a genius this year, he had nothing to fear. "It's not that I'm arrogant, but you want to be my senior brother? You're still far from it. Also, don't compare me to you. You're too useless. You've been around for a few years, but you're still at the end of the generation." Unfortunately, Lin Ling did not give him any face. After all, not only did he represent the martial god camp, but he also represented the men of the Xian Yuan Ge Ber. Therefore, he would not embarrass the Xian Yuan Ge Ber. This was different from the Universal Combat Tablet test. This time, he had to fight. Haha, arrogant. It's been a long time since I've seen such an arrogant person. Is there no one else in the martial god camp? Duan Ling Tian laughed even louder. You don't have to worry about whether there's anyone in the martial god camp or not. Let's fight now. I can guarantee that you'll kneel and beg for mercy within 3 moves. Lin Ling was still laughing as his frivolous voice drifted out. Within 3 moves. This sentence undoubtedly caused the Xian Yuan Ge Ber to laugh excitedly. She felt proud when she saw her man fighting for her. On the other hand, the Falling Flowers Flowing Water Sword and the others were also excited. They believed Lin Ling from the martial god camp would win the battle between the #1 genius of the 8 armies. 3 moves? Haha. Duan Ling Tian laughed even louder. Do you want me to give you 3 moves? In fact, the result is the same whether you give me 3 moves or not. Therefore, I'll make the first move. Lin Ling shook his head and took a step forward. His godly devil body descended as he punched out. The air exploded with just one punch. Duan Ling Tian was still laughing, but his smile froze. He could see Lin Ling was extraordinary just by looking at that punch. 3,000 worlds ripple. Boom. He waved his hands, and a huge amount of world origin surged out and formed a 1-meter-wide whirlpool. If this whirlpool was placed in the sky, it would be able to suck an entire world into it. Let's see how you're going to break it. Duan Ling Tian roared. Even an ordinary 3rd-generation powerhouse wouldn't dare to underestimate this move. 3rd-generation powerhouse? Lin Ling was too lazy to waste his breath. Even if Duan Ling Tian was a 3rd-generation powerhouse, he still wouldn't take him seriously. Bang! Duan Ling Tian's fist blasted toward the whirlpool. Although the whirlpool did not explode, it still blocked his fist. What? Duan Ling Tian was shocked. He thought this move would be enough to shatter Lin Ling's arm, but reality did not develop as he expected. Sword. Sword. However, Lin Ling's attack could be described as a storm. Since his fist was useless, he drew his ancient sword. Swoosh. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.